Oh, we don't do we have sound, people?
Oh, there we go. I think we're on.
Hi, everybody. So, here we are. We've started our live event, and hopefully we have a little bit of sound going on there.
I hear nothing.
Uh-oh.
I hear absolutely nothing.
Okay, I'm getting feedback on my end. There's no sound. How are you guys doing? Can you actually hear what we're saying?
Well, we're going to get good sound or bad sound.
I can see you.
But you can't hear us.
We've got sound. Picture
Awesome.
sound here. I can hear you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Right.
Whenever
Whenever you're doing a live event, those are always the first crucial things you want to know. One, can you see us? Two, can you hear us? Otherwise, you're babbling on for a good 3 hours, and all you do when you look up, because it's next to impossible to follow the posts. So there's actually 3 of us here. There's me, there's Luke, and my one true love sitting in the corner, waiting for any notes or messages that we need to pick up and answer to. But actually watching them is next to impossible. So you babble on, and you find that nobody's actually heard those pearls of wisdom you've been casting out. Because indeed, mate, it's been a long time since I thought there was anything I said worth listening to, but I still live in hope. So we started this live event because of Elegoo. Elegoo, for some reason or other, decided they would send us a printer. Now, I'm a very traditional kind of guy in that I hate changing my mind about things. And if I think something's right, then heaven and earth have to move before I admit I'm wrong and that something else is right. I'm just incredibly stubborn like that, and that's what I mean by traditional. So, I didn't like 3D printers. I didn't like 3D printers because, let's face it, 10 years ago, they were a pile of poop. They were just dreadful. They really didn't work. You had to nurse them. Then Elegoo came along and said, Rob, do you fancy trying one of these printers? And I thought, well, hey, maybe I should have another look at this. So I said yes. And, well, I was like on the road to Damascus. I became a convert to them because they are amazing. Or at least the Elegoo printer I used was amazing. Because I can't really talk about other printers because I haven't used them. For some reason, Creality don't want to send me one, which I think's mean. If they ever get round to it, then sure, I'll do something on Creality. So the only people who've sent me a 3D printer is Elegoo. So the only 3D printers I can talk about is Elegoo. And I'm going to be nice about them because they are awesome. We've had our 3D printers for, I think it's something like 8 months now.
Might be even a little bit longer.
Yeah, it probably is, yeah. I did a 6-month review, and I'll be doing an 8-9 month, well, no, about a year review. When we've had it a year, I'll be doing a review. But essentially, we set them up, turned them on, and printed 24/7 for a good solid 6 months. We still use them all of the time, and we get, I think we've had about 3 problems, and 2 of those were Luke's fault, and 1 was mine. So it's just really been a good solid machine, which is why I'm in support of Elegoo. But it's a little bit balanced in that I've never tried any other printer, so I don't really know about other printers, but I wouldn't really bother because the Elegoo actually has been super. And now, if you don't know, and I'm sure that most people do know, Elegoo have got their flagship products out where they've been updating the Neptune series, which is this filament printer, and they've been updating the Saturn series, which is their resin printer.
Either way, I'm
Yes, thank you, mate. Oh, hey, I've been asked Mr. Who, incidentally. I hear about me spilling my coffee and flashing my backside at you while I try to close the blinds. I've been checking out other people's streams on this as well to see what they were doing and what they've been saying and how it went for them, because I'm nosy. And one thing that I noticed, actually, is as part of this Elegoo product release that they're doing, of course, they sent about a dozen guys out, a batch of these printers, to do live streams on them, things like unboxing, setting them up, and all that sort of stuff, and taking a hammer to them and seeing you can break them. So they've been doing a lot of it, and they've been organising giveaways. So because we're no different, we have a giveaway that we're going to do. I have a link for it, and there is a load of, what have we got, 10, 20, 30, 31, 33 prizes to give out. And I'll give out the link as a pinned comment. But one thing I did notice on other people's, the minute they did that, everybody who was watching rushed to put their link in and crashed the server. So the link will be live until 9:30 from when we put it up. It'll be about 10 minutes or so we put it up. You don't all need to rush to enter. It's not a prize draw where first come, first served, okay? It'll just be live for that time, and then they will draw the link and announce the winner 6th of July. So it closes at 9:30 today, and I'll be giving the link out in about 10 minutes. But please, guys, don't all rush there to click on the link, because you will crash the server, and all that'll happen is I'll get about 100 comments saying the link isn't working. The link is working. It's just if everybody tries to do it all at once, you'll crash whatever server that's been used to do this giveaway. Let's give it a few minutes, and if it doesn't work, try it again in about 5 minutes, and you'll be able to put it through. And there'll be no harm done, because it's not a first come, first served, okay? It's a draw. So there'll be no harm done if you just give it a few minutes if it's not actually working for you the time you went on. Now, I saw a couple of other people's live streams where that is exactly what happened. And they spent about the first 10 or 15 minutes of the live stream fretting about it. So they would then go to the link that they were doing and report back, no, it's working for me, or it seems to. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to assume that too many of you have rushed there and you need to wait. And don't be so quick when the ice cream parlour opens to rush and get yourself cornered. Just give it a little and try it again. You'll be fine. Anyway, it's all part of this Elegoo thing. So we've got 33 prizes to give away, including a brand new Saturn Ultra, a brand new Saturn, some Elegoo resin, a whole load of software. It's all in the link anyway. They did give me a crib sheet incidentally, which I'm cribbing from. Because the other thing that astounds me very often when you watch these things is that people always give you the same information. You know, they sort of talk about the box size, you talk about the sturdiness of it, how it's going to print. So if you want that kind of information, there's about 1 million YouTube videos that you can watch, and you can even just read the book if you really want, because the same stuff is in there. And it can be a little bit repetitive, I find. But of course, the guys who are doing this want us to talk about the things about their printers. Of course they do. And so there's going to be an element of that. Of course there is, because they're giving us free printers, and we've got free printers as a giveaway prize that we're going to do. So loads of things going on, and that's the rationale behind it. So they have basically 2 new types of the. I'm waving a knife at you. I do apologise. I'm doing it a bit passionate. They have 2. I'm telling you. 2 new types of the doing. You see the big section here. These are the Saturns, and Luke's going to deal with those. And here I've got their Neptune 4, and we've got another Neptune 4 lurking, but they're the same, really. So we're going to have a look at that. We're going to have a look at the Saturns. The main claims, and these are sort of the landmark claims, okay? So they're the lead claims. These Elegoo 4s are fast. If you're using an Elegoo 3, if any degree of reasonableness, you're printing at about 60 millimeters per second or something like that. I tend to stretch it a bit to 120. These things will do 250 stretched to 500. I mean, that is a belting speed. And so you're cutting down the thing from, I don't know, a 10-hour print to a 2-hour print. It's astonishing, that speed difference. And the big complaint about filament printers is how slowly they print. And so getting that kind of speed out of it, of course, is an awesome thing to have. And that's the thing that they're talking about, okay? On these ones, the main thing that they're talking about is the resolution. There's an improvement in speed. The main thing is the resolution. And Luke's going to cover that because, again, it's another one of those astounding things. The Ultra goes down to 0.01 millimeter resolution. That is incredible for something like that.
Yes.
I couldn't do it on a lathe. I've got a little hobby lathe. It rattles about a bit. I can do, bits of spinning on it, bits of lathe turning, that sort of stuff. I can't get that resolution. And so the resolution of these resin printers is remarkable. The speed of these is remarkable. Now, the main thing that I've heard about Elegoo. No, the prizes are for anybody. Sorry, just reading. Are the prizes for UK customers only? No, the prizes for people who just put the names in. So you put your name in, and then there's probably a request for your address. Otherwise, how will you get your prize? So there might be a request for your email information. So if you don't want to give out your email information or your address so they can send it to you, then you probably don't want to enter it, okay? Because you're going to have to do that in case you win, so you get the prize. So no, I think that for anybody who happens to click on the link that we're going to pin in the comments section, click on that and fill in whatever they want. The Elegoo are organising it, not me. Very good reason for that. They pay the postage to you. And so the postage for something like that can be 100 quid. And 33 prices. I'm not paying for postage. So Elegoo are running the whole thing. Then they take your information, put you in a draw, do the draw on the 7th, and whoever's won that prize, of course, they're going to request your address so they can send it to you. And I think it's for anybody who wants to enter. Now, they are running these over about, I think it's about a dozen of us have been selected to do this. And so there's quite a few of these. And so they're giving these away as a ta-da, this product's on the market, isn't it awesome? And I'm pretty sure it is awesome. I mean, we're about to take one out of the box and see. And the reason I'm sure of that is I've been using those 3s for ages now, and the prices are crazy. I mean, crazy in a really nice way. I don't know how they can be so low for what they are. It's a crazy Eddie kind of price, It's just really brilliant. And what we're looking at, Luke wrote this down for me. Okay, the Neptune 4, which is this one here, is £259.
Dollars.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, mate. We had this agreement before the video started. If I got something wrong, you'd hit me around the back of the head and correct me. So, even though I'm reading it already wrong.
Next time it'll be a bat.
Okay. And the 4 Pro is $299. So, I mean, that is, for what they are, incredibly cheap.
Yeah.
And we have a 3D printing shop where I live. I live in Herne Bay on the east coast of Essex. And we have a small 3D printing store here, and they run the whole store from Elegoo. So Luke and I went in.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. It was a humongous shelf, completely stacked.
I think they had about 1 million of them.
Yeah, oh wow, probably even a little bit more. But
there was about, I think 60 of them or so. And then we went in and said, well, that's a lot of Elegoos. He said, yeah, they're good machines. So I'm not surprised that people are finding them difficult to buy because they're selling like hotcakes. The minute they come out, then everybody's grabbing them, and they're very robust. So they're a brilliant machine, I can say that. My experience of them has been nothing but positive, and the kind of stuff we've been doing has been absolutely awesome. Now, obviously, a 3D printer is one of those things that you kind of have to have a use for. I mean, everything is something you kind of have to have a use for, I suppose. Apart from those little China dolls, the ones that you put over your toilet rolls to make them look pretty. I suppose even that's a use, isn't it? But anyway, everything has to have a use. So you have to have a use for these things. We use them mostly for engineering models. As you know, we do engines and motors and wind turbines and water wheels. All that sort of stuff is what we use them for, which is why I'm super interested in the resolution of this. I'm wondering if I can just print the pistons for an air engine directly all in one, and it would be a beautiful fit. I'm certainly going to be trying it because that's one hell of a resolution. And we've been using these things for exactly that sort of stuff. And if you've got a use for them, then they're tremendously useful. If you're only used for them as a doorstop, well, you might want to change your mind about them. But if you've got a use for them, then they are really useful because they allow you to do a huge amount of stuff. I mean, a lot of people complain about these, saying, yeah, but they take forever. And I've done videos on this where I said, yeah, you don't need to sit there and watch them while they do it. You can have a life. It is allowed. And the other good thing about these is I tend to put my prints on overnight, go to bed, come down, and they're done. I don't have that many failures where I have to sit there watching them and keep popping in every 5 minutes to make sure they're not spooling hot plastic all over the coffee table. They just work, which is what you want from something like this. Now, we have taken a few of these out. Remember, we've got the Max, we've got the Neptune 3 Pro, the Neptune 3 Max, and the Neptune 3 Plus. So we've taken lots of these things out of typical Elegoo packaging. And what we're looking at here is some more typical Elegoo packaging. I'm hoping this is something like foamed corn. You know how to make that plastic out of corn and foam it up, because there's a lot of it. It'd be kind of cool if that was the case. I'm not sure, though. I imagine it's not. And they're very good on how much packaging they put in this thing. This is fresh out the box. It's not one of those where I've actually taken it out of the box, put it together, taken the pieces, put it back in the box to fool you all. This is fresh out of the box, okay? I've not looked at this before, so I'm hoping for Elegoo's sake, everything is in here. They come with a bunch of stuff. This stuff tends to be the software and the tools that you both need to run the machine and to put the machine together. It's pretty cool, really. We've got a bunch of cable ties. I've never found a use for those. and maybe use one on the machine and the rest actually sit there. Then we have a load of screws, bit of practice PLA, never use that. Now these things, it's a USB cable, it's a USB-A with a little house that you can go into printers. And these things were meant for connecting it. So the Neptune 3, then what you have is these kind of things, because you can run it slave to the computer, but to be honest, I never do that, because that way your computer's got to be on when you're running your printer, and a 10-hour print running overnight when I'm in bed, I prefer the computer off. So I tend to use these standalone. I just load it up onto a USB and stick it into the printer and run the printer, so I never actually plug it in, but you know, there is that capability of running it off the USB.
Of course, everything right here is actually...
Yeah, Brendel, that's likely to happen, Peter. Workflow. Oh, my workflow thing. Yeah, I'm certainly would happy to do that, Mike. I think I'm doing a lot of this stuff. We'll probably take it back out again and do videos on it, which are standalone videos, because obviously this is a bit of you know, a talk and chat as we do something. Some of the stuff, particularly on the workflow stuff, Mike, we're probably better off doing a standalone video where we look at that workflow and how that actually goes. Now, I use Tinkercad, as everybody knows, because to me, as I frequently say, this is not an altar of technology at which I worship. I do not get little things and leave them as gifts to my 3D printer and, you know, pray to provide good health of my children. It is just a tool that I use. And so there's a limit to how interested I actually am in the tool itself. I want the tool itself to do the job a tool will do. I want a hammer to hammer nails. I don't really want it to look beautiful and to be decorative on my mantelpiece. I wanted to hammer nails. And the same thing with this. I just want it to do the job particularly. So I use Tinkercad quite a lot because it is a super easy introduction to get it to do what you want it to do. And it really, I mean, most of this stuff, I think they design it all for 9-year-olds. So if you're 9 years old, you stand at this random with your fingers, you're going to get it to work. And of course, they have to do that because most people need it at that level where it can just do the job. And that's brilliant because that's exactly what they've done here. And it's exactly what Tinkercad is like. You don't need to be a super duper CAD programmer, although CAD is for real men. You don't really need to do that if you're using primitives in Tinkercad. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not learning Fusion 360. I am, sneakily, until I'm good at it. Oh yeah, I use Fusion 360 for that. All the time. Yeah, indeed. That's certainly the plan. But I use Tinkercad because it's expedient. It's quick. I don't have to do anything about it. I can just get in there and do it.
I mean, it's brilliant for, you know, them non-curvy sorts of shapes as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, where you're able to just put a few things together and just have something that will work.
Yeah.
Which is quite
So if you want a Marilyn Monroe light holder, you probably okay, probably not. But Tracy Emmett, no problem, because she's a plank. So no problem at all. So graphene I'm getting a bad look. So, better hold that one back. Graphene infused resin. Now the resin I've chosen is a water washable resin, but they're UV photo pure resins. But the one I've chosen is water washable for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
IPA has gone up terribly in price. I mean, you know, since COVID, when they're all putting it in gel and the alcoholics are stealing the gel to drink, IPA has gone up through the roof. Because if you're using IPA a lot to wash resin tanks out and wash your models in, okay, you don't use all the IPA, you sit out in the sun and let it sit down and recollect it and reuse it, that's for sure. You're still spending on IPA, whereas if you're using a water washable one, of course, then you're using your tap water.
Yeah.
Yeah, word of caution about this obviously is you don't pour that tap water straight down the drain. Just sit in the sun will turn that resin into a plastic, it'll sink to the bottom and you'll actually have clean water. So we're using water washable resin. Making a graphene infused resin is really just a matter of stirring the graphene in there and giving it a go, which is on that list of super interesting things to do, obviously, yeah. Paul. So yes is the answer to that one. We are going to be doing a graphene infused resin once we get on with this, but I promised Elegoo not to take them out of the boxes, not to hit them with hammers, and not to break them within 5 minutes of actually displaying them. So I'm not sure exactly what will happen. Remember, blacks do have a problem with curing with UV cure, so not sure exactly what's going to happen. So I'm going to, because I didn't want to break machines or do anything horrible with them. Oh, the cost of the electrics. So I read a quotation on the price on this. Intelligent tinkering? Yeah. Oh, okay, Ross. I read a quote on the price on this, Matt, and it was something like 13 pence for a 10-hour run. It was something like that. It was just stupid money. It was very cheap. And of course, on the overnights, of course, you're using cheap rate electricity anyway. So the electric cost of the print of these is really inconsequential. Now, the PLA resin I buy, I just get from Amazon, and I'll pay a blind button notice to it, and I spend £15 a roll, somewhere around about there. For these ones, these faster ones, Elegoo are recommending something called their fast PLA. Now, they sent me 2 rolls of it, so I haven't tried to buy one of those yet, so I don't actually know what that is. And some folks have asked me if I could give it a go, 3D printing a Fresnel lens, which I'm also really interested to do. That means getting some clear filament as well. So I'm starting to broaden my horizons on the filament. I've been using more or less PLA because more or less it's been models, but some of the sort of things that I want to do are going to involve some more different filaments, and I'll start to be using those. Now, I never try to use everything all at once. I just take baby steps, and when I make a mistake, I hide it. So consequently, all the broken models are under my side of the bed, which is making my wife look at me strangely. But I never do that. So we'll be doing something on that. The cost isn't brilliant, and we'll be doing something with different kinds of filaments. Anyway, back to this. We've got our little switch. That looks like a network cable to me. This says giveaway on it, so I imagine that's just blank. This is bright red, so anything bright red is going to be important. I imagine that's the software. Then we've got a nice little scraper. There's, I know this is a needle. This is for cleaning out the nozzle of your printer.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's the correct thickness. So when you nozzle, and there's some spare nozzles in with the bright red USB that we're going to discover later. That bit of blue plastic there is PTFE. If you burn it, that bit is to replace it, and there's some spare nozzles. And when you jam that needle into the spare nozzles, and it clears the nozzles.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of screws. And then I find this kind of stuff. And you might have playing with this. I was cutting my nails with it earlier. This is it's a sprue cutter. It's for cutting off the little bits of swarf and things like that. That actually isn't that much when it comes to filament printing. This is much more useful for a resin printer, and so I just use it for snipping the filament when I'm loading and unloading this stuff. But that's what it's for. But they're giving you a little bag of tools. So I haven't got any tools with me because I'm going to give this a go, just using the tools that Elegoo supply in their little baggie. So we got some nice little tools. Yeah, well, I thought that would be kind of cool. Yeah. And from previous experience, of course, what they do is exactly that. It all works off the bat, and the tools are the tools that you need, which I think is really cute. This, again, is the
touchscreen holder.
Thank you, man. Yeah. This has caused a great deal of consternation. So I happen to know that this is the cooling fan. It's a subsidiary cooling fan, because the thing works quickly. It gets hot, and so it has an extra bit of cooling. And on the top is an on-off switch. That doesn't mean that turns that off and on. That means that turns the control for it off and on. There's a little power switch there. The control for this fan set is actually through the main board of the computer. That just actually turns it off and on to supply the information to there. What will happen then is the main board will send the power to here, and that can be changed in the volume of air that goes through, the speed that it goes through, when it turns off and when it turns on. And if you don't like it, because it sounds a bit like a jet engine, you just flip that and then it's not going to work anyway. But you don't turn that on by using that. That is just a way of turning it on when you begin, but it's actually controlled by the main board. But that's the cooling fan. And as we put this together, all will become clearer, I'm sure. If anybody who needs a description of what this is, probably shouldn't be buying a 3D printer.
But just
it's a plug! It's a UK kettle plug, okay, so pretty universal. This is this holdery bit here.
Filament holder. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what it is. Filament holder. Take out a bit more of the packaging.
Nicely packed.
Yeah. Well, it's the other thing that I like about this stuff is the amount of effort you have to go to put one of these things together is super minimal. I mean, there's jack to do to it. I mean, yes, you have to get out of the box. Yes, you have to open up the little plastic packets. But apart from that, there's really nothing to do to it. Now, it does come with an instruction book, but I've never looked at it. The reason I've never looked at it is because I've never needed to, because it's pretty obvious what to do. But if it's not obvious what to do, there is an instruction book with this, I suspect. It's not a physical book, but it will be on this red thing here. And there's a little sort of picture guide on how to put this thing together. And it's like, half a dozen screws, if that. This upright here that we just manhandled out, and that actually has 4 screws in it. They go in the bottom there. They go through the base and they just go into that bottom. And then if you want to know which screws they are, well, they're the long ones. So, it's a little bit of working out here and there, but on the whole, pretty simple to put together. And here's the main body of it. Would you mind just checking that, make sure I've missed nothing there? Of course, there's obviously a distinct possibility that I have missed stuff. There you go, I have missed stuff.
Touchscreen.
Also, the control panel of which will never work without. Is that it?
Yeah, that is it.
All right,
I'm pretty sure. I'll double check.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that looks about it.
Brilliant. That is the basis of the machine once we put this on. Nice and compact, and it looks just like the Elegoo 3, the Neptune 3. As I say, I think the main difference between this and the Neptune 3 is that speed difference. There is something really interesting about this front, and I think it can be mildly confusing, is that the Neptune 3, when you wanted to transfer files, you used a micro SD card, and it was a bit irritating pushing that micro SD card in and out because the SD card slot was it's about here. That's not there now. It's about there. And so your finger was there. There's an SD card slot right under there, which is incredibly awkward to get to because it's where the tensioning where the tensioning screw for the
plate.
No,
belt?
it's rubbery bit. The belt. The tensioning screw for the belt is okay. So that's going to be awkward to get it in and out. Then you've got a USB-C, and then you've got a USB-A right there, and then we've got the port that connects to the control panel. The file that you transfer can actually just go straight into the USB-A, and that's so convenient because the USB-A is a really nice size, easy to get in and out, and it's actually clear of this. So certainly where they had it before was a little bit irritating. Where they've put it now looks absolutely super. And a quick look at the side has shown me that's where the network connection is. So this thing can be connected by the network cable, the USB, or a USB stick or a USB cable. Lots of ways to connect it. I wouldn't bother. I just use the USB because it's just so much more convenient.
Yeah.
You just plug it in there and forget about it. And if you're worried about it and you want to have a look at the instruction book, then there is the instruction book. As I said, I rarely look at instruction books on these things. The whole thing has got nice little labels on it telling you what to do. So we've got a little bunch of screws there, a little clip there with its screw, 3 screws there that I've got no idea what they are at the moment, and then 4 very hefty screws here. And if you look at those very hefty screws,
They are hefty.
and there's 4 of them, well, the only other long ones have got 3 of them. Then it makes me think those 4 screws are the 4 screws that hold this on. And I am guessing, but I bet you, 5 will get you 10.
5 will get you 10.
It will, mate, it will. That they are the screws that go in there and hold that on to complete our build process. So it's not really difficult to put together. It really doesn't take that long. In fact, it takes longer to describe the screws than it does to put the screws in.
Yeah, well. 2 main pieces connected together, and it's already looking like it's almost built.
Yeah, almost there, mate. What's that
Almost
long
there.
Check it, and then we can put it in. So I'm going to lean it to one side. I'm just checking that I'm not actually breaking anything by doing that. In there, we've got our screw holes. We should just go straight up there. Well, looks like it fits.
Nice.
I think so. We'll know in a minute. Because either I'll strip it off and break it, or it'll just go in nicely and it'll be done. Now, I never screw these things down tightly all at once because they start to lock into each other. What I tend to do is do it quite loosely at first, and just to register everything. Sorry about this, guys. We'll get there in a second.
Oh no, technical difficulty. I'm drinking. There we go.
No, we don't. I'll tell you what, I'll put these down.
I mean,
What's that, Matt?
I'm just wondering.
Mm.
Oh no, okay, no, I see.
So while I'm doing this,
Oh yes, what I'm going to do is.
so we planned this before. Eh? So when I get to that stage, mate, you're gonna do this bit, all right? And it's, oh yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, I'll do that. Don't you worry about that. I'll do it.
Rely on me, mate. Rely on me.
So what I'm going to do is put the giveaway link in the comments, and I'll make sure to pin that at the top. And remember, don't run there all at once.
Obviously, once you get one in, the rest is actually a bit more easy to do. It is just 4 screws.
There we go. So,
Okay.
thank you.
That's all right.
You done with that?
Yeah, that should now be pinned at the top of the comment section.
Well, people that are just joining don't know what you're doing.
Okay, so this is the Neptune 4 filament printer that we got from Elegoo to put together on screen, warts and all, for you guys to enjoy. So I assume it's ruining my street cred.
I mean, I feel like I should be able to do a little bit more right here, but
Apparently not. He says this stuff, you know, but then he just leaves me to struggle.
just to make myself feel a little bit
There we
better.
go. Take me a minute to do that.
Okay, I've just realised something as
What
well.
have you just realised?
Oh,
That would have been so much better had you helped earlier. Is that what you realised?
I mean,
there?
that is one of the realisations, but that's not the important one. I mean, look at the back of the printer. You've got a selection either for 230 or 115 volts, depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah.
And you've got to match it to the screen,
Oh, okay.
apparently.
Oh, okay.
That's something that I've just noticed.
So we put those 4 screws in loosely, with help, obviously.
Oh, yeah, lots of help.
Yeah, lots of critical help.
Oh,
We
just-
can tighten those up nice and tight, and we finish our build. We've got a few clips to put together.
Wow, really?
Oh yeah, that's it, mate. It's nothing to it. It really is a piece of cake.
Screen.
I mean, you know, I do have the benefit of having put 3 of these together before, and so that makes you slightly quicker. But to be honest, it's pretty obvious, and that instruction book that comes, which is also pretty good and cartoony, and if you colour it in, I think you get it done really, really quickly and easily. But it's 4 screws. I mean, it's very different to how these things used to be.
Yeah. Well, and I'm assuming this thing just screws into here. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. No, we'll get to that.
We will. My only experience of these was years ago. Well, the Elegoos, obviously, but years ago, having one that came as a bag of screws and a whole load of metal components.
Yeah.
And you had to spend ages trying to work out where everything went. And that could be a little intimidating itself. It's like I say,
Yeah.
I want these things as tools to do the job. I don't want to be slaving over them. I just want them to do it, you know. It's all I really want them to do. Okay, now we do have the rest to put on, which is here. And there are 3 bolts in this one. So we're looking for a bag of 3 screws. Oh, how about that? 3 screws.
Yeah. Once the main portion's out of the way, actually there's leaving a whole bunch left to put on.
Can you melt down felt prints and re-extrude it? Yeah, you can. You need to chop them up, melt them down, and put them through a file extruder. But yes, you can. But of course, and like anything, you know, whenever you're recycling plastics, then you've got about 6 or 7 recycles before it actually degrades. And so I'm guessing that would be the same here, that you'd have something like that. So you can do that, but not forever.
Nice. Well, that's something I didn't know.
Well, that's my guess. And, you know, got to remember, most of this stuff I said at the top of my head and wild to guess at. So I'm not 100% sure about quite a lot of it, but that seems to be right because that's true of plastics.
Yeah.
I've got the wrong screwy thing.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I've got them all here.
Oh, okay. I was looking for them for a second.
Is the Elegoo with a metal hot end? I don't understand that. Do you mean the joiny tube where the filament goes through? Because of course the nozzle itself, that is a bit of brass, and the bit that heats up where that bit of brass goes is a lump of aluminium. So in that sense, yeah, it's got a metal hot end. It would have to, because it would just melt. But the tube, feeder tube, that feeds the filament in the first part of it, that's a lump of PTFE. Although you can get a lump of brass tube to replace that PTFE if you really want to. I've heard, well, it's the same thing with this, eh? I've heard both yes and no about that. I've heard people saying it's a waste of money. I've heard people saying it's an awesome thing, do it. And so the advice on that one would be, well, give it a go and see what you think about it, because I've just heard both about it.
Yeah.
So in the sense that the heating element and cartridge that our heat element sits in is a lump of aluminium and the nozzle is a lump of brass, then yes, metal. In the sense that the tube is PTFE and not brass, then no, it's not. So I think that's what you mean, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's the best answer I can give. I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass or smart about it. I'm obviously trying to give reflection to what you asked and hopefully give a comment that, you know, reflects what you asked, answers the question you asked. So that's the way it is with this thing. But again, you know, we've been using it for 8 months and, oh, nothing. I mean, you know, I haven't changed anything. So I don't really know. I mean, that's a testament to it. Yeah. Of course, I do have to change things. And, you know, of course, we're going to do a video on it. So you'll know because there'll be a video that we do on the thing. So at some stage or other, we're going to have to change a nozzle or change that feed tube. And when we do, there'll be a video.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I may not worship them, but in this room, there are 3 people. One's keeping quiet in the corner handling the messages.
One sat here.
And bless him, doesn't care one way or the other about 3D printers. The other one uses 3D printers as purely a tool for his creativity. And the third one of us, mentioning no name, worships them as if they were his own personal god. He is so excited about these resin printers. I'm telling you.
Yes, yes. But we'll get to that.
We will get to that. So the reason I'm doing the filament printer and not the resin printers, because somebody was really, really nice today, and this is his reward. Instead of going to the zoo, he gets fun doing the filament printers. He didn't know that before, and he's now sat there thinking, I'm not sure which I prefer.
Sat here sweating now.
I mean, the zoo is such a good trip.
Oh, no. I didn't realise the zoo was on the table.
No, the zoo is always on the table. Do you know I may have got the wrong screws? Here I am bragging about this. Maybe I should have looked in the instruction book, because
there's 2 screws here for this.
Yeah, which will be 2 of them.
And there's 3 screws left over.
Yeah, well, the thing is, this has to go on, and it's got 3 holes in it, and it's pretty long. So maybe I should have used. That's what you get for being a smart ass, isn't it? Talk about my justice hurts. I'm busy screwing those in, thinking they're going in a long way. I'm just checking these are all the same size.
Yep.
Oh, to hell with them. I'm doing them and replacing them with that. And if it's still not right, I'm going to blame Luke. Let's face it, it's the only thing that makes sense.
It's the only way, mate.
We do this every time, you know. These are the bits that you don't see. Eh?
Yeah, it's almost like behind behind the scenes.
Well, I tried to make the videos sort of, sit on the toilet kind of length, stand at the bus stop sort of length. That's sort of 3 to 7 minutes long, so they're a decent watch if you're making a cup of coffee, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that means actually, surprisingly enough, well, probably not actually if you know anything about this, that's quite a lot of preparation. So we did quite a lot of things before, including putting screws in the wrong hole. So we put the screws in the wrong hole and you don't see them. And you might have noticed how long it's taking to put this screw in and out of the wrong hole. So we were doing the plan earlier. I said, oh yeah, we'll put this Neptune together and that'll be that. And that was like one line. Here we are 40 minutes later. Still just putting this there. And look, you can just do that, mate, and that'll take you 5 minutes, and so on and so on,
Really easy, that.
Yeah. But now I'm starting to think, yeah, they belong there. And of course, I've put them there. So who would like to vote on whether I'll forget they're there or not?
Oh no, I've lost the screws.
Oh, I'll never say that. I should blame somebody. Somebody who's completely and utterly innocent. Oh, now, there we go. Well, now you see I'm having a problem seeing. This is more convincing.
Yeah, okay, yeah, they look like they're screwing in a bit nicer.
Well, it's not that they're going to go in. Luckily, they're all the same thread. I think they're M5s, I'm not sure. They look a bit too small for M6s and a bit too big for M4s. So I'm guessing they're M5s.
Could be M4.3s, mate.
You don't make M4.3s, mate. They make M4.5s.
Nah, M4.3s, mate.
Don't make them there. That's what you get for being an old fart.
Yeah. Well, that's not that. Even though that little hitch is still going together quite nicely, still pretty speedy, if you ask me.
It wasn't a hitch, mate. It was
no
a
hitches.
spot the deliberate mistake.
We're just checking if yous are on the ball.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a mistake, mate. Still, that is much nicer.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, there we go.
That's actually very nice.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is really nice, actually. I mean, it is quite sturdily, well, it's very sturdily built. Remember, this thing has to go at 500 millimeters per second, so it's got to have a degree of stability.
Yeah.
It can't be bouncing everywhere. So it's bouncing everywhere.
Just wouldn't be able to print with it.
You're not going to get the resolution, are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just going to get wavy lines and all that sort of stuff. It's just not going to give the resolution. Yeah. Especially at those kind of speeds.
Yeah, I mean 500 millimeters a second. That's zoom, 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 zoom. Zips around.
Grand Prix level, man.
Yeah.
This is the kind of speed that drag racers go. I'm willing to bet we're going to have a problem seeing that head move in real time.
That quickly, mate. It's a blur.
It is, mate. It's going to create its own gravitational field. It's going to move that quickly.
Oh, I can't help it. I get sucked in.
No, that is a remarkable speed.
Wowzers.
Yeah, well, it's just a lot of. Well, I was stubborn enough. There we go.
Nice.
To put it in, and now, of course, I have to be stubborn enough to take it back out again.
Nice.
Use the super resolution mode to make look at yeah. Just to keep him happy. Because there'll be tears at bedtime now.
For M4.3, mate, I'm telling you.
There we go, we've done that bit. So we've got 2 spare screws. 5 will get you 10. There for there.
Yeah. Nice.
Which is obviously the filament holder arm. So let's do that while we've got them.
Yeah.
Well, it's just safe you're losing something else, doesn't it?
Yeah, like that. Very nice.
I do think they're a well-designed machine, actually. There's several things about them that sort of betray thought in that design process across the whole of Elegoo. I mean, I think Elegoo are probably aiming at being the market leader in this breakout in high-speed filament and resin printers.
Yeah.
And given the price points that they're taking and the actual quality of what you buy for the price that you're buying it at, then they're certainly making a good bid for that, I think. And they're not doing a bad job of it at all. People don't watch out. Elegoo are going to be the market leader in these kind of printers. Now, these things, when they come, I've got a little twist knob right there, and it puts tension on the drive belts here and here. And if you give them a little flick, they've got kind of a dullness to them. So you just tighten that up. You can hear that sound getting tighter. You don't want it too tight, but a bit of tightness on there helps with it, because it means that the drive is going to go smoothly along. So I give that a little bit of a tighten until I can get a ping out of it that I like the sound of, or just a feel of it. It's a bit slack, of course, it's going to jump and skip, and you'll see that in the resulting print, in which case it's one of those things you think, oh yeah, I'll just tighten that up.
Yep.
Okay, then we've got our control panel.
Here's the best bit, of course.
It is. Oh yeah, that's the
everybody's
favourite bit, is it not? And that goes in the little slot at the front, incidentally. So we've got so I'm not sure what that is. Is that an RJ15 or something? Your telephone's an RJ45. And I'm not sure what that one is, which is your internet cable. This one directly links to your router, so you can run it from that or the back of your computer. But that small one goes in there, and that's where your display screen is.
Nice. You
choose left or right on this one, I think. For some reason, I'm not quite sure what that reason is, I always tweak to that side.
Yeah, especially where the
Oh, they're on both sides.
Oh, it's on both sides.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So,
So
really
on
doesn't
that
matter.
arm, once I get this screwed in, I'll show you. No, I don't think there's any reason for me doing that. I just do it that way around. There's a little brass bit right there. That brass bit is to take a screw for the filament sensor. So the filament sensor goes on. The filament sensor can go that way or that way. And I don't know why. I always put it on that way, and so I always put the arm on that way so the filament sensor can just lead in there. I say always because this is number 4 of these I've put together. So there's clearly always and always, eh?
Nice.
There we go. And that filament sensor then just goes onto that side arm.
And we've had these filament sensors come in handy a couple of times, haven't we? When we've just been leaving prints and the filament runs out, it will actually stop the print.
Yeah. Yes, that print stop pause function. We had a brownout here actually in one night. Just lost the electricity, and I've been running this print. It was the Darwin wind turbine actually. I've been running it for about 4.5 days, and we had a power cut out. So I was, you can imagine, not that impressed, but it came straight back on. It was very cool actually. And the filament sensor runs the same way. Now there's a little cable there with 3 pins on it, and there's a little hole there with 3 pins in it, and they just go in there. And you can tell that because it's the only cable that reaches that far, and it's got 3 pins. There we go. That's the filament sensor connected.
Very nice.
They're kind of a hard plastic, is what those rollers are. So they're not powder coated. Well, maybe they are powder coated, but they're certainly not painted metal. They feel like a hard plastic roller to me. You know, I've never thought about it actually. Again, I mean, you're talking about a $200 machine, okay? So somewhere this is not going to be a Rolls Royce. If it was a Rolls Royce, it'd be a couple of $1,000. I don't know where that somewhere is. What you're talking about is a balance of what it is. So for a couple of $100, if this lasted a couple of years, I would be over the moon with that kind of performance, you know? So somewhere you're going to pay because this is a reasonably priced machine. And so that means they can't be putting gold on it. There's got to be things. Now, as I say, we have been using this for close to 9 months. And if I look at the other ones, there's no wear off on all of these rollers. So I'm guessing that coating, this, is a lump of hard plastic that's good enough for the job that it does. And give it about 15 years from now, it'll be in the tip, okay? It'll be useless. But I'm okay with that. for what we've got out of it. So I'm not too sure that you're going to be looking for the super stuff. You're looking for stuff that's going to do that job for a time to a degree, given the price it is. And the price is pretty damn reasonable, and the results we've got from it have been fairly good. I actually think I'm finished. And I'm just looking at the bits, and I don't think there's any more bits to put on.
No, it's just
Well, there's a little clip there that needs to go on. Oh, this bit. Yes, we need to put that bit on. There we go. Oh, dual drive, eh? So it's got the two of these rods at the back. It's not the same for all of them. Yes, the same for all of them. So let's stop bragging about something that there seems to be de rigueur. So this bit, I suspect, goes on there. Yes, it does.
nice.
Okay, so that's our super cool bit. Okay, the bit that we get the cooling from. And again, remember, you put the power in, but that's not the on-off switch. It's just to isolate it, so you can put the power in. And this is the bit where I think I used these long screws that I used before. So I didn't forget where I put them. That's always a win. However, I do have the wrong spanner, and I've forgotten where I put that. Yeah, there we go. All right, so our super cooler goes right there in these 3 holes. I don't think there's anything else to add, actually. I think we're there. Yep.
Nice. Yep. They're definitely the right places for them screws.
No, definitely. Yeah. You notice he says that now. He knew all along. You know? He just waits.
Just keep it quiet.
Yeah, give me that, Grandad. I'll sort it out. That's one of those things that really gets on my nerves, huh? So a few things that really gets on my nerves, so that's one of them. The assumption that because my hair is grey, my ability to cope with a mobile phone is in direct relationship to the depth of greyness of my hair. I'm not a technological idiot. I do actually know on the whole what it is I'm doing with these things, surprisingly enough. And so when folks do that for me, it drives me mad. It really does. So if Luke were to grab this spanner and go, "Don't you worry, Grandad, I'll look after it for you, mate."
Do you want to plug these in?
You go have a cup of tea. Leave it to me. Then I would not be the happiest of bunnies. Okay? Now, judging by these other ones, we've got a little hole in there, and we've got this plastic bag with a clip in it.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that wire goes on that clip.
Just to keep all the wires neat and tidy.
I think so. So I'm catching everywhere. And that's every little bit done. So apart from one mistake with 3 screws the wrong way around, endless interruptions, we put that together pretty quickly, I would say.
Wow. Yeah, no, really does keep it nice and tidy, doesn't it?
It kicks the way out of the way, doesn't it?
Yeah, stops anything from hitting the actual.
Well, it stops it catching, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it also does something else. It tells me where the wires are.
Yep, I suppose you're right.
Well, there's only one plug. I mean, that's the thing about these things. When you wonder about where the plugs are, then usually the wires go to where they're going to be plugged in. So it's usually not that far off from where you're going to end up plugging it in anyway.
And the good things about these as well is that it looks like they're all specifically designated as well.
They are.
So it's going to be pretty easy. If it doesn't,
Doesn't fit. It's not meant to go
it's
in
not
there.
meant to go in there. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting it to fit and you're taking a nail file to make it fit, you're probably making a mistake. You probably shouldn't be doing that. But that's just a guess on my part. I'm not having much fun putting this together, am I? Well, this little clip's a bit tiny.
It's causing a few issues.
It is. It is, mate. It is. Don't like it, mate. I want a new one. So if Elegoo are watching in, this clip's awkward. You can send me a new Luke. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and help.
Apparently not. It seems the extent of helping is just, looking at me and giggling.
It's just moral support in this.
Well, that's just plain awkward. Sure, it's going in there. No. After we just said that stuff about it, here you go, Grandad, you give me that. I'll sort it out for you, mate.
That's all right. Let me give it a go, mate.
You're not getting the look at this. I've done it now, eh? And
That's not helped.
there was no way you were getting the glory for that, mate. No way at all. Sorry, Mel China. Okay, so I was burbling on about things fitting because they fit. There we go. We've got our little 2-pin there, which clearly goes in the DC there because it's the only one there. It's the only one with 2 pins, and it's the only one that fits. So that's going to go there. Big old one clearly goes in there.
Into the hot head.
Yep. Now we've got a whole bunch of pins and bits down here. So we've got a large flat one that will only fit into the motor. So that goes in there clearly. And the other approach I have to these things is plug in what you know, and then you're going to have very little left over. If you start trying to plug stuff in all over the place, you're going to find that most of the time you're thinking, am I sure that goes in there? You just plug in the ones that are obvious, you'll be left with 1 or 2 where you can have a guess, and usually they fit anyway, and they're about the only way they fit. So that's those done. Got another one loose there, which is that other motor, so that one goes in there. There we go.
And
well, we've got these curious little devils here, see?
what's that?
Well, they're clearly to go in the other motor, because there's one missing there, see?
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that clearly has to go in there. Unfortunately, of course, I've now screwed that pin down, and it's too short!
So now you have to undo the pin.
Yeah, I am! And that was a nightmare to get in there, so now I'm going to have to undo the pin. That'll alarm me. Because you've got these 2 little wires. One of them clearly is that motor driver there, which is this large flat one. So let's have a look, see if you can see what that is.
There it is.
Yep, there it is.
Yep.
That goes in now. There we go.
I was just sat there, I was wondering, I was like, what's that motor for then? I can't figure it out. Of
Yeah.
course, it's the one that moves the
Yeah, excellent. Right, there it is. Got 1 more left, and clearly it's a sensor right there. So we can put that in. That's all
Nice.
done. And now,
time to put the clip back.
yeah, that'll be fun, won't it? And we're done. Hey, really? Hey, people, we're done. That's it. We've put the thing together. So I would say,
Except this one.
yeah, well, somebody not a million miles away from here whose name begins with L might want to help with.
Oh, okay, I can help with that.
Up to you,
Possibly,
mate. Up
of course.
Up to you, man. Up to you. You think it's
I'll-
right
I'll-
at this
I'll-
point
I'll
in
wait.
time?
I'll wait until you screw that in, so I'm not.
So you're not doing anything at all, can't you, mate?
Nice. Yeah, wow, really? That is, except that wide, that's all set up.
Yeah, but I had the added advantage of doing this with a whole load of my mates around, so it was just fun, eh? You know, I imagine if you're doing this all by yourself late one night, you're going to find it a frustrating experience, but we just did it together, and it's huge fun. That bit goes in there.
No, it's got a nice little cable clip on that as well to keep it out of the way of the hothead.
Yeah. Just making sure I've got that the right way around, literally. I suspect I have. Yes, I have. Ta-da! Now you will notice for my next trick, nothing between the ears. Got that together. So there we've got, guys. Oh, I remember I talked about those cable clips. If you're unhappy with some of this stuff, then you can obviously cable clip it together. Me, I don't give a monkey's one way or the other. Wow. One of the other interesting things about this actually is this bed here.
Yeah.
The bed. If you look at the older ones, it's got 1 heating zone. It's got an aluminium plate here, and it just heats once. If you're printing a large print that comes to the edge, this edge actually gets a bit cool, and you'll find it lifts just because it's a bit cool, and you're restricted to printing in the centre.
Yep.
This one has a centre heater and an edge heater. So the heating is much more even, much more easy to control. And if you are worried about the expense of what that electricity is going to be, and you're just doing small models, you can actually just turn the centre one on. So pretty cool, that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's probably one of my favourite things about these is the fact that you can have 2 separate heating sections. Like you said, one for small prints for the middle, or you can have both sections on for doing larger prints.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier in the live stream that we have a plan. So it's not actually random. So leveling the bed is part 3. So yes, we're going to be leveling the bed. But the first part is to get them out of the box and struggle. This is the difficult one, eh? That's why I did it.
Yeah.
I'm
just gonna
Yep, that went straight past you, didn't it, mate? As difficult as it gets, that's the difficult one. The Saturns are much easier and quicker. So Luke's going to take the Saturns out,
I mean,
and we're going to have a look at those.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put this to one side now while Luke does that. When we come back to this, which will be after Luke's had an exploration of the Saturns, then we'll be levelling the bed, okay? So you're jumping the gun a little bit there, mate. It is in the plan. It's part 3. So if all you want to see is levelling of the bed, now is the time to make a cup of coffee. Okay, I'll clear up. And Luke will get the Saturns down.
I'll start getting the Saturns down. Now I'm really excited about this, actually.
I can tell by the way you're standing there.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, which one do I start off with? There's 2. Right. And the boxes are quite big. So, I'll tell you what. Move this one out of the way for a second. And bring this one in. So this is the part of the live stream which I've been really excited about, actually. And the first one that we're going to unbox is the Saturn 3. And like Rob said, these are pretty easy to set up, and that's why I'm going to be unboxing both of these. And they're not going to be too different from each other in terms of the unboxing. So let me just undo this and see what is actually inside of this box. Oh. Lovely. He says still struggling to open it.
Nice right there, mate.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, so first impressions, actually. I don't know what this material is. It feels like a really thick cardboard, but again, nice packaging. I'm easily impressed with packaging, I tell you that.
Nice package.
Okay, well, first things first, we've clearly got, well, it's a plug, so I'm going to put that to the side for now. And I'm going to come sit in your seat, Rob.
All right, Matt.
I'm nicking it.
Good man. I see you put a printer in mine.
Yeah, well, I thought, you can sit on that.
Thank you, mate.
So, first things first, power line, instruction manual. Oh, and clearly a levelling card, which is pretty cool. And
If you look at the instruction manual, as I say, it's like a cartoon book. Hey, it's just really super easy to follow.
Yeah. And, well, it's already pretty much put together, isn't it? As it comes out of the box. So let's undo that. I might need
You hand them over, mate.
Oh, yeah, I will actually. And I might need your help getting this out of the box.
Yeah, of course, mate.
If I lift this,
Yeah.
and you take the box once I've got it.
Yeah.
Wowzers! And there it is. That's actually
Isn't she a bad
isn't
boy?
it?
That is nice, isn't it?
I didn't. Wow, that's actually really big.
It is. I tell you what, this is just an opportunity for double entendres, isn't it?
I just sat there waiting for it.
Right, that's a big one.
See, with unboxings, these are always my favourite parts.
So again, really nicely packaged.
yeah,
We've got
really nice.
lots of protective packaging around it, so it's, no damage at all to the thing. And yet, right there, we've got a great big tick mark where clearly the delivery company thought this was a football, and they were using it in lunchtime just to see who could win. So even though we got damage to the outside of the box, because we got a ton of that really heavy-duty packaging, the machine itself, I think there's not a crack in it, isn't there?
No, absolutely.
Because that was a very old kick, eh? So it's had a dent in it.
I mean, I like this plastic they put around it to make sure, it doesn't get scratched or
There's nothing in there wrong with
Absolutely
it.
nothing wrong with it, no.
Yeah.
So, comes with a nice toolkit, which is actually quite hefty in weight. So, okay, you get your gloves, you get your tools to make sure that you can put the whole thing together. Power cable. Oh, and this is actually very interesting. This is a USB air purifier. This actually cleans the air whilst it prints, I suppose. And
Sweeps as it cleans, mate.
Sweeps as it cleans. Yeah, a few more tools, some masks, and a USB.
Excellent. Yours is
Nice.
yellow, mine was red.
Yeah, well, you know, everyone knows yellow's better.
Okay.
So I'm going to put that to the side for now, get the toolkit out, and go for the grand reveal, I suppose. Ooh. Oh, nice. That is the foot plate. Ooh. I can't help but say, ooh.
It's like Christmas, isn't it?
It is like Christmas for
If
me.
this was green and this was red, it'd be Christmas all over again.
This is actually really cool about this. Is the fact that it's been laser engraved on the actual foot itself. Helps with the bonding.
So when we used the Mars, because the only other one of these printers we've had has been the Mars Elegoo, and this foot plate here, this base plate where the thing sticks to, it was flat. And actually that was a real pain because half of the time it would pull the print off. So the advice was to go over with a bit of fine grit sandpaper and then make sure you buttered the thing with the resin first. So that would make it fit. The other thing you had to do is actually doing with the tank there, because this tank on the Mars and on a lot of these printers, it's FEP, fluorinated ethylene polymer. And actually, it would be a tug of war between the bottom of this base plate and that polymer. And sometimes that polymer would win, and of course, it would just pull the model onto the polymer. And then when you're exposing it, you're not exposing new resin, because the resin is supposed to cure on here, and it lifts up and keeps on curing in slices. It does that. It's just getting exposed there. It would be pulled off the bed. And you were supposed to, a little trick I heard about was spray that with a bit of dry PTFE.
Yeah.
Very, very light. It was a real pain, actually. Spray a little bit on, rub it off, and then polish it for half an hour. And then you could get good prints. And we did that, and that's how we got good resin prints when we were using the Mars. This laser engraving on the bottom of the bed here, and the use of this is not...
Do you want it? Sorry.
Yeah. This is not polynated ethylene, fluoropolynated ethylene. This is some different kind of film, I believe, called ACF.
ACF? Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
We'll have to check exactly what that is. But they've
it's in my
changed the
notes.
film, and the whole point being that it makes that separation much, much more easily, so you don't have to go to the trouble of giving it a spray with PTFE, and you don't have to go to the trouble of giving this a jolly good sand and buttering it before you actually print anything, because it's got this beautiful patterned laser engraving on it, and that laser engraving is supposed to help with the adhesion.
Yeah.
Now, my guess is, when this first goes into the resin on the first print, any air in there is going to get trapped by the resin, and you're going to get little bubbles on it. I would still think it'd be a good idea to give this a butter over with the resin before printing. Otherwise, I think air would trap whatever you do. But it's supposed to help. We're going to find out, and it certainly looks jolly pretty.
It really does. And I mean, the size of that tank's really nice as well. The whole build size of this is actually quite big, isn't it?
Can you remember what the foot plate size is?
Ooh.
Have you got crib notes?
I do.
Awesome. Crib it then, mate. If you don't remember it, crib it.
They're right over there. I need to
That's the spirit. Where are they? He's going to grovel under the desk for you.
Yeah, it's in my file of facts.
He has a file of facts. He's a file of facts
What
kid.
did I do with it?
No, I have no idea. You probably put it in your bag.
Yeah, I probably did.
Oh, I'm not going in there, mate.
This is my laptop bag.
It's $399.
Yeah.
For this. And the Ultra is $499. So there's $100 difference in the two prices of those. You can bet your bottom dollar that $100 difference will make a difference. It's quite a lot of money on something like that. I mean, it represents 25% increase of this, or that's 20% saving on that, whichever way around. But it is a price difference, and there'll be a good reason for that. And we will explore that reason. But it is also a Saturn, and so the Saturn will have things about it that are going to be common. And some of the common things are the bed size, the resolution, which is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it really is.
I was burbling on about this before when I was talking about that resolution you could get. You could do a printer, but this is, I believe, 12K.
Yes. Well, yeah, 12K resolution, 11,520 by 5,120.
Is that miles or millimeters?
That's that's resolution. That's pixels.
Oh, is it? Oh. I'll hush my mouth.
19 by 24 micrometers, which
Okay.
is really, really high quality.
So I don't know about you, but I still don't know how big that tank is.
Yeah, that is one thing I don't actually have down. But something that we can, actually get.
Well, did I say something about, mind you, I'm saying that. Oh, I know, it's coming when I level the bed, I'll tell you what the sizes are.
Yeah,
Because I did my research.
it'll all come all within time.
Okay, mate.
But I mean, it really doesn't look like there's going to be a whole bunch to this. I mean, we need to level the bed, but before we put we have to level it before we actually put this tank back on. So all we have to do for now is
Okay,
stick that in
so
there.
305 millimeters across, 273 millimeters deep, and the print volume is 567 millimeters. So that's
Nice.
actually, that's quite a size actually. And I know that because it's written right there. So, just have a quick look and you can get the sizes on that. And basically what you've got is chunky size. Eh?
Yeah,
That is a
yeah.
chunky amount of printing you can do. You can do some mighty things with that.
I mean, we managed to do some mighty things even with the Mars. So
We did?
having a bigger print foot like that is that's pretty much it for now. We
Really?
it. Yeah.
And that's the thing worth noting is this has got the old ball and socket joint.
Yeah.
So it's got a screw here, and in there is a ball, and the leveling really is about that. I'm pointing this out because I've heard something, and no doubt when we get it out of here, what I've heard will be obvious to you.
So yeah, we could just put the top on that.
And that's it done there.
Yeah, we want to keep everything together with this printer.
Well, that was easy peasy lemon.
That was really easy piece of lemon squeezy.
Yeah,
So
it was.
yeah, we could move that out of the way for
Okay,
that.
No worries.
And now here is the Saturn III Ultra, and it's some really cool information that I will go through with you guys when it comes to the leveling process, but I just want to put it together first. But this is actually the flagship.
I would think so, of the resin side.
Of the resin,
things,
yeah.
I mean, as you know, I'm a bit of a filament fan.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at Tom Stanton, what he did with his magnetically driven bike, I mean, he used both resin and filament to do that. And so each of them have their place, eh? So saying one is better than the other is going to be a silly thing, I think.
Yeah.
It's really just a question of what you want to do with them and which one's got its place to do that job. But now, this is their flagship resin printer, but their flagship filament printer, well, I think that depends, eh? If you're looking at them for size, then you're looking at the Max. If you're looking for speed, then you're looking at the 4 Pro.
Again, lovely package. Very nicely.
Lovely package,
Lovely
right?
package, mate. Again, another power line, leveling cards, very cool manual, instruction guide. Again, very cartoony. I'm going to put that to the side.
Yeah.
This thing looks awesome. I can't wait to get this out. Same routine?
Yeah, why not, mate?
Come on, imagine if I drop this now. And the first thing to notice is that they're different colours.
And you are not paying $100 to have a different colour. There are other differences. So while Luke does this, I'm going to go make us all a cup of coffee.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Look. Ooh, again. Very, very nicely packaged, so nothing gets damaged during transit. And as Rob showed you earlier, there was a big kick mark in one of them, so that's always a worry when something like that turns up at the door. But knowing that it's so nicely packaged, well, it's actually a bit less of a worry, I suppose. And again, I'm assuming the same toolkit. Yeah, you got again, one of the cool things about this is the USB air purifier. And I actually am really excited to give this a try to see if it works well.
So if I could interrupt there, Nick,
yeah,
a couple of
of
good
course.
questions.
Yeah.
Which is better for a beginner? Well, really, it's actually about what you want to do with it, okay? So I would say that if you were going to do a more artistic bent of what it is you want to do, then the resin printer is going to be better. So if you're looking at modeling things, looking at miniatures, that sort of stuff, maybe architectural stuff, you're going to be better off with the resin printer. If you're looking at more structural things, then I would say you're going to be better off looking at a filament printer. Having said that, the filament printers, well, they just require you to stick filament in. I mean, these are resin printers, and we've got a water washable resin, but it is a resin. And so resins take a little bit of handling. I mean, you know, it's not like sulfuric acid that we're talking about here. It's like more like washing up liquid, but you can spill it, and you do need to clean things, and it does have a resin smell. So that sort of stuff goes alongside with the resin printer. And if you want something that's going to basically sit in a corner and be completely unnoticeable until you up and run it, I would recommend a filament. I mean, we started with filament printers and went on to resin printers as an extension of what we were doing, and we found that a good way to go. So in all seriousness, I think that it's actually a question of what you want to do with it. But if you're not 100% sure and you want something that you can give a go and it's going to be innocuous, try a filament first. So that's what I would recommend, really.
Nice.
So yeah, graphene in the resin, we've had that as a question before, and obviously the answer is yes, you can, and it is a project we're going to be up and running with.
Yeah.
We're going to do that, which is another one of the reasons we got the water washable resin. But whenever you put black into something, then you're always going to alter its cure times,
Yeah.
and so we don't know how that's going to affect the curing of the resin until we actually try it. And so we'll be looking at that. But, you know, we have a tendency to try stuff off camera and then present it as a kind of result rather than take you through all of the failures. I mean, I know that, you know, that there is benefit to be seen from failure, certainly, but we just have that tendency. So we still got to do that, and it is on the list. What's this? Jupiter is the flagship resin. Yeah, okay. Nothing to say. Yeah, okay. Anybody who thinks it's the flagship, it's Jupiter. Right. I'm going to make us some coffee while Luke shows you this.
Yeah. This is the one that I'm actually really excited about. Saturn. Again, we've got the same footplate, but you're going to notice something a little bit different, and that is the connector that actually connects onto this. It's not that typical ball joint that Rob was talking about. It's something a little bit different, a bit of a chunkier sort of attachment piece, which I quite like actually. So I'm going to put this to the side for now so I don't lose any bits whilst I finish unpacking this. And I can already notice a few differences between the Saturn 3 and the Saturn Pro without actually taking a proper look at them. And the first difference that instantly caught my eye that may not actually catch everyone's eye is this. Right here, the bar that goes up and down. This is much, much sturdier. It looks much thicker actually. So that's always pretty cool. But other than that, let's see what happens. And of course, there's a lot of backing information for this, which I will start going through on the leveling process. But I just want to get this undone, things put on there, and then we can actually start setting this up, which I'm super excited about. So let me make sure I do put all of these things in a safe place, because you can ask Rob, I do have I have a tendency of losing things quite often. But I'm willing to admit that. I'm just going to put that down there. Nice safe space. Ooh, come with an extra piece. Nice. Just going to remove this. Clearly they put this in to protect everything during shipping. Put that in the bin. Wowzers. Yeah, so straight away I could notice that this connection piece is slightly different. It does look a little bit more chunkier, and I suppose that's due to the, slightly higher, not resolution, I don't know what it's called, but again, we will go through that. So what I'm going to do is just put this on here, screw that in, and that's pretty much ready for the leveling process. But of course, let's finish unpacking this section, because I want to see how nice this thing looks when it's actually put together. Because as much as I do like the red and the different colours, I much prefer the sleekness of the plastic. Right. We are almost there. Wow, I made that look easy. And just up and down the right way. Yay! So take a look at that. That is actually really, really nice. Oh, one other noticeable difference is on the Saturn 3. There was a button here to turn it on, and there is no button here. So I'm actually really excited to get into the differences of both of these. I'm going to take this out of plastic. Whoops. Take this out of the plastic packaging. Nice. Back into the other one. And bring the Saturn 3 back over so we can take a look at both of them. What? And there we go. That is both of the Saturn and Saturn 3 Pro unboxed and actually ready to be leveled, which I'm super excited about. But as you can see, they're both slightly different and they do both look really, really cool. Take a look at these.
They're beautiful, mate.
They're
We've
really
talked
nice.
about leveling.
Yeah, shall I just start back with the leveling?
No, clear them out of the way and bring the Neptune Pro over.
Bring the Neptune.
My turn.
Rob's turn. Okie dokie. I just wanted to show you the comparison between them both because they are really nice. Look.
Oh, okay. Right.
What does the resin cost? Oh, I think that might be a question for you, Rob. So
Yeah, it's quite expensive, actually.
I'm not 100% sure.
So we have a kind of agreement between me and Luke. Luke will say, do you want a cup of coffee? And I get to make it. Which is awesome. But this time, of course, because I've started the coffee and cleaned all the tut out of the way so we can actually move, it's now Luke will have to go and make the coffee when the kettle boils. I've got the ear open for that kettle boiling. That resin, well, we got the 8K resin, of course, because we've got a 12K printer. And we didn't get the super fast resin, because there is a super fast 8K resin available. The 8K resin was £40 a kilo, so that's actually quite expensive, I thought, when you consider the filament. I mean, I didn't check the rapid PLA filament. The normal PLA filament is round about £15 for a kilo, so that's telling you the sort of prices. But I mean, you're not using a kilo in every print, so we did a first print, and probably it was something about that big. And we used something like 51 grams. So you're not using huge amounts, but neither is that resin particularly cheap. I suspect it depends, obviously, on how much you do of these things. So I found it a bit expensive, to be honest. Okay, so leveling the bed. One of the things that this is really cool about, in the old Neptune, the Neptune 3, I mean, when you say old, you're talking about 8 months old. I went down to the local store today to buy some oil, and it comes in a spray can, and they have to press this button for anything that's an aerosol to say that they've checked your age, and one of the age options is checked identity by identity card, whatever, a driving license, or they had another button, was obviously so old I didn't ask him for any documents. That's the one they pressed for me. Curses! That shattered my self-illusions of eternal youth. Apparently I look so old, I don't need to be checked. I can just stagger out with anything that I wish. But old is a relative term, and obviously the Neptune 3, old is very much in brackets, you know. But when you're talking about the old one, what you had for the leveling was a kind of screw arrangement under here, and you had to do some stuff with it when you were working on that so that you could loosen and tighten the nuts. And that was a bit of a pain. Now, on the factory setup, actually, they're quite good about it. So the factory setup version, thank you, Matt, was really done. There wasn't that much that you needed to do. But on this version, they've replaced that nut arrangement with the same thing that they started putting on the Max and the Plus, and that's these hand knobs here, right there. We've got some turny hand knobs that are really easy to get to, because this plate sits on a central bar, and there's 4 of those turny knobs here, 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 and here, and it sits on balanced on this bar. And as you move those turn knobs, it will make it go that way and that way, which is what the leveling is all about. So the left and right knobs make it do that and that, and the front and back knobs make it do that and that, which is how you actually level this, because there's 2 steps to the leveling. The first step is where you do the manual leveling, and that's what I've just been on about. And then you do what they call auto leveling, which is press some buttons on the screen. So that's actually, in theory, forgive me, all there is to the leveling procedure. And when you do this in practice is plug it in. So for that, I need a power cord, and I've just got one. Thank you. Power cord and a piece of paper, because we need to put a piece of paper on this, because the thickness of the leveling is that thickness of paper. If we plug it in, then the machine will crank itself up. I've got to find out where to plug it in. Oh, there it is. And I've changed this screen look, it's much prettier. Do they have a
Core XY.
I don't know what that means. What's a core XY?
It's sort of core. You were talking about going that way and that way.
Oh yeah. So down the centre there's a bar, and it just wobbles around that core, I suppose. But I'm sorry, mate. I'm trying to be funny. I don't know what you mean. So they've changed the software on this as well. This used to be Martin, I think it was, announced something called Marlin.
Yeah, Martin.
Marlin. There we go. So I just don't care. I mean, you know, it means nothing to me.
Now it uses something called Clipper.
Awesome.
Awesome sauce.
Does it still print?
It still prints.
Well, there we go. So I'm sorted. Okay. Yeah, I know people like to get into the software that drives this stuff, and Clipper, I have heard, is the open source software of the moment. I don't doubt that something else will become popular later, but right now it's Clipper, and that's what's in there. Okay, so to level this, we've got that thing that says level on it, and we can confirm that. And now it's going to return to 0. You can see the head's already moving rather nicely.
Nice.
Yeah, and it'll find its 0 position.
Like magic.
It's just like magic, mate.
See, believe it or not, I always find this stuff actually quite fun.
What's not to find fun about it?
The setup of stuff.
I hear you.
Very much enjoy it.
Okay, so we've now got a screen showing us auxiliary and automatic. We want auxiliary for the first bit. And when you hit auxiliary, what you'll get is this 5-point thing here. So we're going to do 5-point manual leveling first.
Nice.
Yeah. So if we press point 1, it will go to point 1, which is just over there. And we can tug that paper. That paper at the moment is trapped between the bed and the print head, so you can feel the resistance of it. And what you do is twiddle this knob here. You twiddle the knob to either loosen or tighten it. Obviously, if it's tight, it means that that plate is going that way. So we've got the print head there, the plate's going that way, and it's nipping the paper between the print nozzle and the plate. And so what we want to do is we want to tighten that up, because as we tighten it up, it will pull the bed in that direction, easing the pressure between the print nozzle and the print bed, and we should feel that paper slacken off as we do that. As long as I'm actually turning in the, there we go.
There we go.
Until we get it slack. Now we turn it the other way until we just feel resistance. This is a little intuitive, but you don't need to worry so much about it because it will be taken care of in the next level. We just need to get it to a level at which the automatic can actually take care of it. Once you've got a slight resistance on there, you'll hear it and you'll feel it. Then we can go on to the next one. If we do 4, which will be this one here. That's far too loose. It's just going all the way in. So if it's far too loose, then there's our print bed. We want to bring it up there. Far too loose means it's pulled in that direction. So we need to loosen that off so that it will spring up because there's springs under here. There we go. And we just get a little bit of resistance on there. Fantastic. We'll do 3, which will be this point here. Same thing, so that's far too loose.
Just until there's a bit of resistance.
Unless, of course, I'm tightening it up.
Like I say, I don't know why I find this stuff so enjoyable, but it's fun to do. You know?
Yeah?
Yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
So it's lefty tighty, righty loosey, I believe. I am deliberately getting that wrong, okay? Please do not correct me in the comments. Okay, so we've done that one, and the last one we've got to do is number 2.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I suppose I better move out.
No, that's all right, mate. I just need to get there. And that's obviously far too tight. There we go. Okay, so remember, it's like that. And if it's like that, and that will make it tight, so you need to tighten it up to pull the bed down to make it loose. If it's like that, it'll be far too loose, so you slacken it off so the bed comes up to make it tight. Once we've done that, we've actually done the manual part of the leveling, so we can go back and then we can do the automatic leveling. The automatic leveling takes a little bit of time because it has to heat the bed. It heats the bed because obviously we've got a difference in temperature will create a difference in height as the metal expands and shrinks depending on its heat, etc. So once it's done that, it will then automatically level it. Once you've automatically leveled it, you need to fiddle with something called the Z-axis. The Z-axis is the one we didn't do there. It's the center point. It will go to the center point, drop it down. We do exactly the same thing with the piece of paper. You put the piece of paper under, and if it's too tight, then you need to move the Z-axis up. If it's too slack, you need to move the Z-axis down. When you've done that to get slight resistance on a single piece of A4 paper, you have finished with the leveling process. So that is how you level one of these, and it is made so much easier because of these little twist knobs here. Now this plate isn't actually that big. It's 220 by 220 millimeters. And that makes it relatively stable, and it takes quite a lot to knock that out. On the Max, it's 480. It's large,
Yeah,
okay, it's about nearly half a
massive.
meter. That goes out of level if you look at it fully. And so those knobs make it really much, much easier to get it back into level. I don't think they really needed to do that, but they've done it, and it is very much more convenient than it was on the Neptune 3. So Neptune 3, you had a couple of little spanners, you loosened it off, and then you twiddled it, and you pushed it back to tighten it up, and you put the lock nut on, and you could do that half a dozen times, and it was really quite irritating. That was super easy. Chances are it's not going to move out of level in months. You need to do that maybe once every 6 months, once every year, or something like that. It's not a huge task, and it's as simple as that to level the bed. So the procedure for leveling is a piece of cake, and of course it's on the front screen, and it has the word level. So you stab at level, and that will give you the leveling menu that you need. And these things, they're menued the way that old phones used to be. They're just level menus. So there's just a sub-level of menus behind the main level of menus, and you access that. So you step down through the menus, then you have to step back up to go to your next bit to step down that level of the tree. So it's done in the same way that old phones used to be. There's no sort of jumping around from one to the other. You have to go in an orderly manner through the levels, but they have some pretty pictures, and it's really quite simple, and you're not going to be doing that much anyway, so it's very easy to use.
Nice.
Well, there's not a lot else to do now,
Yeah,
you know,
except
apart from to wait, okay? And you can see it's just lit up number 1 there because it's now doing its multi-point leveling. It's just done number 2. And it'll work its way across that bed, just testing the level point. What it does actually is test the point to where it censors the bed. And then it keeps a note of that number. Then when you do the center, that is called the z-axis offset. It subtracts that offset from the note of each point that it's done to get the point at which the bed is going to be. So that when it does the print, it knows where that bed is for each print point, which I think is stunning, actually. I mean, that's a lot of trouble to go to. And all of that is like hidden from you in the operating software. So it does that calculation automatically before you, once it's taken these readings. So it's not actually moving the bed at this point in time. It's reading the distortion in the bed, and it uses that distortion offset as part of its calculation of where to put the print head on the first few lines that it does, so that it gets it level. So of course, you know, the plastic fills the hollows, and after about 5 lines or so, you've got a nice neat line and it stops doing it. But for the first part of that, it does that calculation as it lays those first few lines down. So it's not actually changing the bed at all. You did that, or one does that when you twiddle those knobs. And that's why twiddling those is not as hugely critical, because if you get a fraction of a millimetre out or so, the calculation can take care of that. As long as you're in that range, you're going to be okay, in the range of the thickness of a piece of paper. And of course, a piece of paper is 80 microns. Now, in our terms, that's not very much. In these terms, it's quite a lot, okay? So it's really quite, well, clever, actually, to be honest. I do like that. What about it?
Oh, it's pretty much almost there, isn't it?
I think it's looking like 36 test points, because we're at 30, it looks like. It's its last row.
Nice.
And then we do the z-axis offset.
Yeah.
So remember, manual with enough twiddly knobs, press automatic, so it takes all the measurements, and then z-axis at the end of that, your leveling procedure is finished. So loading the filament, I mean, you just hang the thing on there, stick the filament through there, a little light will go blue, you stick it through there. You press that down to feed the filament right in, this little lever, then let the lever go. Now we're back here, you can see where we are. It's got auxiliary automatic, and then we've got the measurements here. And if we get our piece of paper and try and feed that under, we can feel that it won't feed, it's too much, eh?
Yeah.
So if I do 1 millimetre and up, it'll raise it by a millimetre. I can get that in really easily. Now with 2.1 millimetre and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, there we go. We've got it just catching there. So it's 0.1 of a millimetre out. That's actually done. There we go for my next trick. That's it. Then we've leveled it now. Confirm it so it saves all of that data, and then we're done. That's how you level these things.
Now that's ready to rock and roll.
Yes, that's done. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, I'm going to clear that out of the way so you can do leveling on yours.
Okie dokie.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to set the Pro and the 4. So the 4 Pro and the 4, we'll just line those up and we can have a look at the differences, because obviously the Pro is more expensive.
Yeah.
And there is a reason that it's more expensive. So we'll have a look at this, the Neptune 4 and the Neptune 4 Pro together. The speed of this thing, it is the big marketing point. I mean, they've done a few other things about it. Hey, so we pointed out the leveling system has changed between the 3 and the 4, and making it a much, much easier job. Hey, the software has changed. The user interface is an awful lot more neat, and the print speed is the real thing. Hey, when we load up the software on the computer to run this, then that print speed has changed to a recommended 60 millimeters a second to a recommended 250 millimeters per second. That's huge. Now, I always ran my Neptune 3 at 120 millimeters per second because I'm crazy. But I'll be running this at 500 millimeters a second because why not? We'll see what it does. That is a huge increase in the speed at which these things can run. And that's, for me, the real marker. I mean, there's lots of things I like about it. Hey, I do like this change to the USB stick. I do like the internet connection that it's got so you can run it from your router. Some people are saying, actually, that that's a bit of a pain and they wished it was a Wi-Fi. I have no idea why you would wish that. If you want to run something from this from your computer, you're slaving your computer. If you're just downloading everything to Wi-Fi, then just explain to me how much trouble it is to save it to your USB and then go like that. It's really, not that much trouble. In fact, it's probably more trouble to slave it to the Wi-Fi and then transfer the file than it is just to do save to USB and click. So it's actually, I think, easier to sneakernet this thing along, and it makes it stand alone, and it just does its job, and there's nothing else you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to clear this away now and line it up with the 4 Pro, so we can get ready to have a look at that. And Luke's going to walk you through the leveling of the Saturn 3 and the Saturn 3 Ultra.
Well, the leveling process for both of them is pretty much the same thing. So,
well, let's swap over there.
Should I? Okay, yeah, I'll tell you what, let's swap them over.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I'll move this out the way and I'll be back.
So the standard temperature for PLA is somewhere between 200 and 230 degrees centigrade, and the bed temperature is around about 60 to 65 degrees centigrade. Now, we obviously, when we're in the lab, which is basically a big old unit with no heating, it's pretty cold down there. So we put the bed temperature and PLA temperature up to take account of the chill factor that's present in the environment in which we're working. And so I would tend to print that at 220 and 65. When we're here in the studio, of course, we're in a nice warm environment where we've got the heating going, and I tend to print at 260 degrees bed temperature, 200 degrees PLA temperature, because we don't really need to take account of that. Do you want this bit, Matt?
Yes, please, mate.
Okay.
And just in case, I have got my instructional guide. Righty. Oh. Now, this is actually going to be pretty exciting because I've been wanting to level this for ages, but I haven't been able to. I haven't been allowed. So, first things first, I suppose we need to plug this in. And like I was saying, the leveling process between both of the Saturn 3 and the Saturn 3 Pro, it isn't going to be much different. They're pretty much the exact same. We need to unscrew these so this wobbles, give it a little press, and as I showed you when I was unboxing this, we do have a leveling card, which makes it super cool, and you definitely want to keep an eye on that. So it doesn't go missing, and there is my leveling card right there. And right now, as you can tell, that's got no resistance on it. So, time to bust open our toolkit and start loosening things up. There my tools gone. Loads of spare screws. Power grip.
Should I go for Matt?
The toolkit. Oh, no, I just realised something.
Still in the box.
It's still in the box.
There you go, mate.
Right there. Right, let's move that out of the way. Let's get this thing plugged in because I'm really excited to see what this firmware is going to be like, actually. Right. Ooh. I think that's going to be my catchphrase for the evening is, ooh. There we go. That is now plugged in. Lovely jubbly. You see on the side, let's switch that on. Ooh!
That's all right, mate. Why should I get a seat when that lump of plastic needs it so much more than I do?
Exactly. At least you agree.
I do, mate. That's the only thing that makes sense.
It is the only thing that makes sense. Just to make sure I am doing things correctly, it's always worth giving it a little double check. You know me, mate. I don't like getting things wrong.
I hear you, girlfriend. I feel your pain, sister. Brothers under the skin.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Right. Well, I think we're actually ready to level this thing. So first things first, make sure that this is actually on properly. I'm going to get my leveling card, stick the leveling card underneath the foot plate, and then we can actually loosen these 4 screws right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what controls the foot that goes sort of this way, and we need that to be pretty flat. Well, it needs to be flat, otherwise it won't fit properly. So, let's loosen these off. A bit tighter than what I expected. Remember, loosey righty,
Lefty tighty.
lefty
That's it.
tighty,
Something
yeah.
like that.
Something along them lines.
So essentially, these things actually are very similar. Okay, they both have this
Yeah.
etched foot plate here that we're seeing. Because I've got the one from the Saturn 3 now. But what you can see mostly is the difference between them as these 4 little screws here and these 2 rather large ones there. And it might seem a little bit of a pain because, you know, here we're having to do 2 and here we're having to do 4, so twice as much work.
Yeah.
And these things actually aren't as tight as you would want them to be, and it does make the ball joint move a little bit. I mean, we're talking fractions, hey? We're not talking about, you know, between here and Edinburgh. It's like the thickness of a hair.
Yeah.
But this thing, remember, it prints at something like 1/5 of the thickness of a hair.
Yeah.
So these little movements can make all the difference in something like this. And when you've got this, that ball joint isn't as firm as that 4-point fix. I mean, it's a 2-point fix and a 4-point fix. Try standing on 2 legs or being on all 4s, you'll soon find out which is more stable. It's a much more stable arrangement. Now, it's my guess that the stability of that arrangement there is one of the reasons for one of the differences between the Saturn 3 and the Saturn 3 Ultra.
Yeah.
And that is the overall print resolution.
Yeah.
This thing will print down to 0.01. The Saturn 3, 0.02. There are various reasons for that. That'll be one of them.
Yeah.
With lots of engineering reasons that add up to that much better resolution. So 2-point, well, it's half the price because it's 2 points. 4-point seems more a trouble, but it is far more stable.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's one of the reasons they've taken 4 points here, fixation, to give it that stability, whereas 2 points fixing is one of those things that contributes to $100 difference. Remember, this is $100 more expensive than the Saturn 3, and this will be one of those little contributions that is being made to that difference in price. And perfectly adequate, does a really good job. Don't get me wrong, this is not a pound of shite, this is really good. It's just that this is that fraction better that's going to add up at the end of the day. But the procedure is the same. We take whatever fixing points we've got, and here we've got 2 fixing points, here we've got 4 fixing points, and loosen them off.
Yep.
And when you've loosened them off like he's done, press it down.
Yep. Well, first things first, we have to go to system. Nope. Tool. There we go. Set Z equals 0. Confirm. And what that's going to do is just bring it back to its 0 point, but clearly it's already at its 0 point. So what we're going to do is, like Rob said, press it with one hand, making sure that's nice and flat. Get our screws back. Making sure that there's a nice amount of resistance on the card. One hand, and just tighten these back up. just like so. And now they're finger tight. Let's make sure that they are actually tight. Nice. Oh, wrong way. Nice. And nice. And there we go. That is a nice bit of resistance on that leveling card.
What is resistance is going to be subjective to you. Hey?
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll think, you know, oh, that's good. And other people think, oh, that's a bit slack. Or you might think, oh, that's a bit tight. It's going to be a little bit of subjectivity in there. But the amount that this reses, if the print is not adhering to the foot plates and it's getting glued onto the plastic sheet, then you've set that wrong. That's actually one of the big problems, hey? You need to set that correctly. If it's doing that, then basically what's happening is it's going down in the resin, it's stopping about there where it should be stopping there. It's then exposing, which is exposing on the level of the resin bath, and that's just going up and doing nothing. And that's only because it's not far enough down. Now, again, remember, we're talking about these kind of less than a hair thicknesses. And so little difference can make all the difference. If you get it a bit too slack, and it's really won't feel slack to you, but it'll feel, but it is still too slack, but it won't feel it, then you won't get the model adhering. If that's happening to you, you need to go back and check this. And what you thought was a good resistance was a little bit slacker. And so you just make it a little bit tighter, and you'll feel it. And then when you run the model again, the model should stick and lift out. So you might have that problem if you get this leveling stage wrong. Yeah. In which case you just go back and do the leveling stage again.
Yeah. And of course, if it is, say, too slack or it has too much resistance, you just come over to manual. And that way you can actually move it by 0.1 of a mil, 1 mil, 10 mil, or 50 mil. But I know that's going to be pretty good. So what we have to do is come back on here. We actually want to move this up because now it's time to put our tank in, which is the thing that I've been kind of excited about.
Okay.
So let's, well, they recommend at least 100 mil. So let's do that. Ooh, it's like magic. Oh, and I've noticed one more piece of packaging that I missed.
Oh, take it out.
Whoopsie. And there we go. It's now time to put our tank back in. So, okay, handy. It's right there.
This is another one of those things that they've done here that I think is really cool. When we had the Mars, what you had was a couple of flanges coming up there with the knurled screws on it. And you slid it into where the flanges were tightening down the nuts. There's a little bit of guesswork about where that actually went. But with this one, it fits just in place, and this is going to go inside that tank without you actually worrying about it. So it's taken away that element of guesswork that was involved there. And to me, it indicates that Elegoo listened to what people are saying. That got complaints because it did lead to you having to leave that slack, lower that in, then tighten it up, and a little bit of jiggling around before you got your print going. And now they've replaced it with this locator peg where it goes straight into the location peg of this. And I think that's pretty awesome, actually, because it does make this part of the setting up a bit really super easy. I mean, you know, Luke's really not done that much to set this thing up, if you think about it. You take it out of the box, put this on, undo those nuts, give it a press, and you're pretty much done. So there's not been a lot of setting up with these things. And that's really the win as well. You don't want a lot of setting up. You want these things to be super easy to use, because using them is what it's all about. It's not about worshipping the printer. You just want a reasonable printer that you can use with the least amount of trouble.
And install our everything.
Awesome.
Which is the very last thing.
It's another difference that these have. Hey? On the Saturn, there's only one air filter. There's a USB port right at the back here with a rubber cap on it that the air filter actually goes into. Yeah. On the Ultra, there's two of them. Now, it comes supplied with one, but you can get others, obviously, as an ancillary piece of kit. What do they call it? Disposable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get others, and you can put two in there, and obviously that's a little bit better.
But apart from that, that is pretty much the setup done. All we need to do now is stick a bit of resin in there and pretty much click print on whatever you want to print, which is like Rob said, actually a little bit, well, really cool.
Okay,
actually.
Steve W says you've done something wrong and will trash the screen. It'd be awesome to know what that something wrong was, Steve, or are you just putting a bit of worrying out of there because I can't see what we've done wrong.
I mean, I followed the instructions.
I mean, if Steve wants to tell us what he thinks that is, brilliant.
Yeah.
But I don't see what we've done wrong. I'm quite happy to have a quick check about it.
Me too. Because I'm also unsure.
But if Steve, you want to give us a note what that is, mate, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Although you might have left the screen on, but you haven't. The only thing I thought you might have done was reset to 0, but that was the only thing.
Yeah.
So Steve told us what we've done wrong. Okay, Steve. Good one, mate. Very funny. Okay.
Yeah, well, assuming, I'm joking, that is pretty much everything. That is now set up. I need to go take this aside, put some resin in it, and
set it up and we'll start doing the software.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're going to pull those two Neptune 4s, Neptune 4 and Neptune 4 Pro, and have a little bit of a better look at the difference between them and why it is you're paying a bit more money.
I'm just going to leave that there for 2 seconds whilst I do some stuff. But that USB air purifier, I know it's so small, but it's something that I actually kind of like.
Yeah. Do us a favour, mate.
Okie dokie.
Pass us those 2 Neptunes over before we start setting it up.
Okie dokie. So let's bring this bad boy over.
Thank you, mate.
One. Without looking, you're going to have to tell me which one's me.
Oh, this is the Neptune 4. That's the Pro.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate.
Nice.
Okay, so we're looking at the Neptune 4 here and the Neptune 4 Pro right there. This, obviously, both of them have that declared print speed, the 250 millimeters per second recommended, up to 500 millimeters per second. And we've both got these extra air blowers here to help with that cooling effect because you're pretty quickly at that rate. And they both work the same way. That is an on-off switch right there, but it does not control that fan. It just supplies the power to the fan. So we turn it on. It's not going to start blowing until we put it under program control. That is, we start to print. When you're starting to print, the print screen will show you levels that you can put for both volume and speed of these that blows the air out across here and across here. Both of them have this dual thing. So we've got a center heater and we've got an outer ring heater. So we've got a 2-stage heating, 2-area heating, and then both of them 220 millimeters. So by 220 by whatever that is, 240. So why would you bother? Why would you spend the extra 50 quid for this one and not this one? What's the differences between them? Well, it begins to be immediately obvious when you look here at the carriage rail. Right there, we've got some steel, stainless steel carriage rails with a dip in them running over this steel bar. Here, we've got these very hard rubber rails running over that dip right there, where the drive belt actually is. Now, with all the best will in the world, when you're running something fast on a bit of rubber, it is going to bounce. And again, we're not talking about massive amounts of bouncing here. We're talking about tiny little things, but then we're talking about tiny things that are going to have a tiny fraction of a difference in the print quality that we're actually doing. Here, what we've got are these wheels running over here, and that's very much more stable. So chances are this is going to cope with 500 millimeters per second piece of cake. Chances are this is probably stretching it, and we might have a bit of an issue if we try running that at this is max speed. And if we're running this at max speed, I would expect this to perform much better. Now, it doesn't only have the guide rails here, it's got them on the base plate here as well, right there on that section. What that means is that we've been able to lower this section because we don't have as much necessity for this depth that we've got there. So this is actually slightly more compact. So we've got a more compact version. That compact version is able to run faster than the previous version, courtesy of this, and we've got a bit more stability. So this crossbar here, where we've got this plastic cover on it, that's very reminiscent of the Neptune 3. And this is a piece of extruded aluminium right there. This one is actually cast, and so there's a great deal more stability and sturdiness in this section here than there is in here, giving this more rigidity and a bit, making it just that extra little bit more true than this one here. So we've got, forgive me, slightly better engineering. And of course, the more you over-engineer, the more you engineer something to greater accuracy, the more expensive it gets, because tolerances are what cost you. So we've got better tolerances, better engineering, better materials, better guides being used in this than we have in this. And it's not a huge difference that we're talking about when it comes in terms of money. And so we've got the Pro version here, which is what, $50 more?
Ooh. Yeah, about $40 to $50 more.
Okay, and that $40 is probably accounted for in those things that I mentioned. And the difference that will make is that this is probably going to skip if you're actually about 500 millimeters or so. And this one is probably going to be able to cope with that a piece of cake and still do your pretty reasonable model, even at that speed, okay? So that is the difference between this Neptune 4, I hesitate to call it baseline Neptune 4, but the Elegoo baseline Neptune 4 and the Elegoo Neptune 4 Pro, that'll be the difference between them and what you're paying that $40 for. Now, Elegoo have this rapid PLA that they've brought out for that rapid printing. I've used or normal PLA up to press. I've loaded the rapid PLA, and the loading procedure is a piece of cake, okay? You just feed your PLA through there, push this, because that just releases that clamp in there, feed it in there, this is on, and you press load, and it loads it, so there's nothing to it. Eh? Once you've loaded that, then you're ready to print, and I'll be printing with this rapid PLA to see if it does anything different. I'm not sure how much the rapid PLA is, because I didn't buy it. Elegoo sent me this. I've bought the normal PLA for this, and that normal PLA is £15 a roll. So that's the kind of differences that we're talking about when we're talking about the difference between the Elegoo 4, the Neptune 4, and the Elegoo Neptune 4 Pro, which is this one here. If we're looking at the differences between the Elegoo Neptune 4 and the Elegoo Neptune 3, well, there's quite a lot more difference between those, okay? On the Elegoo Neptune 3, we're looking at these being little spanners and bolts at the bottom. On the 4, we've got this beautiful, easy-to-use turn section there. On the 3, the Neptune 3, we're talking about single plate heating. On the Neptune 4, we're talking about dual heating surfaces with an inner and an outer. On the 3, we don't have this at all, this auxiliary cooling cooling air port. On the Neptune 4, both the Neptune 4 and the Neptune 4 Pro, then we have this. Like I say, you turn it off and on here, but it's actually controlled by the software. And that makes a lot of difference to the performance of these things. And of course, the software has been hugely improved as well. It's the Marlin
Clipper is installed
on the Neptune 3.
On the Neptune 3 is Marlin.
Awesome.
Yes,
it's the Marlin on the Neptune 3.
You can tell what I'm thinking about saying in the next section already.
Indeed. And the clipper on both of these machines. And so there's been big upgrades on the software side of things as well to get those extra improvements out of it, because you're not going to get those improvements just using software. You have to change the engineering, and so the engineering is that bit more robust. And so that's the difference between these two machines and between the Neptune 4s and the Neptune 3s. Now we're going to have a look at the Saturn 3 and the Saturn 3 Ultra. And Luke has set that up over there, because after we've had a look at those, what we're going to do is have a look at the software. So we're going to swivel the camera around now so that we get a view of what Luke has actually been doing over there.
I may or may not have actually poured some resin in.
Okay. No clues, eh?
No clues. Although there is a bottle of resin right here. Awesome.
You're gonna have to sit down, mate.
Yeah, that's a nice shot. Wait, I've also forgotten my file facts. Oh, right, yeah, so I've actually been very, very excited to finally give this a go. I've not been allowed just yet, which is kind of unfortunate. But I suppose as well, I filled it up with a bit of resin. It's actually ready to go, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, mate. Let's have that
do
top off then.
Yep, okie dokie.
Let's have a look at the two of them together.
Let's move that over there. Hopefully I'm not getting in the way of the shot. If I'm in the way of the shot, I'm going to move. Wowzers! Oh,
Okay, so immediately I can actually smell that resin.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've taken these tops off. We have the air purifiers in. These tops, both of them, both the red and the grey, come with this little port here. So this port can come off. You can put some piping in there and you can duct that to the outside.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mind this smell, hey, because, well, you know, it's just not something that bothers me. I'm a chemist, and so I'm used to these kind of chemical smells. My wife, I know, doesn't like this sort of stuff. It can really get into nasal passages, give her a headache, that sort of thing. And so this would be something I would seriously think about ducting to the outside, maybe even forced air ventilation. There is an air purifier that Elegoo is coming out with that's a bit more beefy than those little purifiers we've got in there.
Yeah.
Now, we don't get the same heady smell that we're getting now we've lifted these on. Once these covers are on, that really, really helps. But there is a couple of things I think we should point out while we've got these two things to set up, just to get an idea of the similarities and differences between the two.
Okay. Stick that on.
So, so somebody's asked how many prints from a bottle of resin. Well, that's impossible to tell, okay? Because whenever you do a print, obviously, your print software will calculate how many grams of resin it's going to use. And of course, this is 1 kilo of resin that we've got in there. And so it's going to print a kilo of prints. However, for many of those prints, you can put in a kilo. So if you're doing little miniatures that are a gram each, well, you'll print 1,000 of them. So you'll do 1,000 prints. If you're doing a Wolverine full-size statue, you'll probably just get his arm out of it. So I don't know is the answer. It does it by weight. And that's going to be directly the weight of what print you're trying to print. And that's going to be based on volume. So I have no idea, but that's the best answer I can give for that. So there is $100 difference here, what you're looking at. But when you're looking at $100 difference, of course, what you're really wanting is $100 difference in performance. It's very nice that one is red and one is grey, because grey is the colour that we all love, hey?
Yes.
Did we mixed the resin, you don't really shake it. If you shake the resin, you introduce an awful lot of air in. What you actually do is just tilt it that way and that way and that way, and that gives it a good mix, as opposed to a good shake. Because a good shake of the resin, you have to wait for all the air bubbles to go down, in which case the resin's settled. So don't shake it, you give it a mix like that. Okay,
Nice.
that's probably the best way of doing it. So the answer to that question, did we shake the resin? No. Did we mix the resin? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not just talking about design differences here, okay? One of the big differences, now this one here is this little thing there. It's got a Wi-Fi connection. I don't think the Saturn does it?
I don't actually know.
Pretty sure it doesn't. It's the
Yeah.
Ultra that has the Wi-Fi connection. And that allows you to transfer the file by Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Once the file is transferred by Wi-Fi, then you can print it directly from the Elegoo printer. But we have a nice Wi-Fi connection there. But we equally have the USB connection there as well. And as you know, I'm not one against sneaker netting stuff. I mean, my desk is like there. It's about 3 feet from there. I'm not going to whine about moving 3 feet, okay? So it's not a great problem for me. Now, what they've done as well with the Elegoo Ultra is you might notice all of the controls and connections have been moved to the side. So the power connection is there, the on-off switch is there, the Wi-Fi is there, and the USB port is there. And it's giving us a very clean front, which I think is very clever. The reason I think it's very clever is if you think about where you're going to spill resin, it's actually mostly one of two places, the back or the front. The front where you kind of hesitate, you're dragging it out or pushing it in, you're likely to get resin drips like here, really.
Yeah.
Or equally, you're going to get them at the back. It's very unlikely you'll get them at the side. So they've kind of moved those out of the way to give a nice, clean front. I mean, we've used water. Can you pass me a bit of that? Of course. Thank you. This is the resin we're using, 8K Space Grey, water washable, photopolymer resin, UV length 405, and it is an Elegoo product, so we're using the correct Elegoo resin with it. This does come in a fast form, but I don't think it's readily available just right now, so we've just got the ordinary 8K Space Grey water washable version. Meaning if we do get it around, then it just mops up really easily. But it is sticky resin. And if you're using the IPA form, you'd be there for half an hour with cotton buds trying to clean that off. So it'd be a bit of a pain. So that nice clean front is not only to do with the general design of the thing, I think it's an improvement in the handleability of the machine. And if we compare that to the Saturn, the main on-off button is right where Luke's finger is.
It's a nice click.
it is a nice click. The screens are just the same. The control software is just the same. But that on-off button to me is susceptible to damage, actually, more than anything else. So I like that.
Yeah, that's something that I really like about it as well, actually. I do like the physicalness.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Certain things.
So a question here. If I was spending my own money, which would I buy? Well, it would be the Neptune 4. So I'm more of an engineer than I am of an artist. I'm actually a very poor artist, but I do like designing and I do like engineering and all that sort of stuff. And so for engineering models and gears, that kind of thing, wind turbines, I think the filament is more appropriate. I mean, that's just my impression of it. Because remember, Tom Stanton, who is an engineer, he uses both of these. And so at the end of the day, it's actually which is most suitable for the job that you want to do.
Yeah.
But if I was getting one of these, only one, and it was my choice and my money, I would buy the Neptune Pro, the Neptune 4 Pro. No trouble at all. I like the Saturns, and we're going to be doing some interesting things with them because we have them. And if I had the money, I would buy one. But I would buy the Neptune Pro first, if it was there. But that's just me, okay? Then that's my particular bent.
Yeah.
So beyond that, of course, like I say, what we're looking at here is performance of a thing. And you've got to remember this, it's all a big lump of metal. That is a nice ABS. I mean, it's tough, it's durable, it's going to do the job, but it's not metal. And this is a big chunky bit of metal. But if we look at this section here, the drive section, and if you wouldn't mind pointing out the two drive rods, man.
Right.
Have a look at that one, and then compare it with that one.
That looks to be about an M10. That looks to be about
8.
An M8.
Yeah. So we've got a much thicker,
Even
chunkier rod right there, driving that up and down. The actual distance between the two guide rails is wider, giving it more stability. The overall horseshoe that it's sitting in is bigger and chunkier. So the whole thing is a much more chunky build. And that extra engineering gives it that extra resolution. So we can get 0.01 out of this. You can get that because of the extra engineering that's gone into it. And that's where the money has been spent on that.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference to the result you're going to get. I mean, you're getting 0.02 on the Saturn, 0.01, twice the resolution on the Ultra. I would think that was worth that extra little bit. We're certainly going to give it a go. Yeah, they are. And we'll come to that when we load the software, because whether it's Apple, Linux, or Mac or Windows makes no difference at all. So the software is available for all 3 operating systems. These are, remember, basically printers. So they have their own code when it comes to the print file. And the code is, I think it's Goo, isn't it?
Yeah, .goo.
Yeah, and that's an open source code, and it's universally translatable. And so the printers run just like any other printer. The software loads into iOS or Linux or Windows. So yes, they're iOS compatible.
Yeah.
So that makes all the difference in what it is that you're getting there. And for me, when I'm thinking about something like maybe a piston or an air engine or something like that, or a generator, and we can get that kind of tolerance out of something. And remember, with generation, it's BLV sine theta. So that distance where the magnetic field is falling off at the rate of the inverse of the square makes a huge difference. And so I'm very interested in that resolution. And so that, I think, is one of the reasons that I would be much more interested in the Ultra. Now, not to say that the Saturn isn't a beautiful, interesting scene, because the resolution in terms of the screen size is identical.
Yeah.
Because it's a screen, you know?
Yeah. Also, there's one more thing to note about the differences between this two, and this is not 10 millimeters taller. I know it's such a small thing, but it's still worth mentioning.
Anyway, I wanted to take the covers off and point all that stuff out to you, but I'm going to put the covers back on because, as well, Patty's sitting right there, and I don't want it to suffer.
But yeah, super. Let's stick this back on. Careful does it, careful does it.
So I'm going to ask you what you mean by metal 3D printers. Are you thinking about things like SLS, selective laser sintering, that sort of stuff? We're using metal dust. If you are, the answer is no, because they're industrial machines, and I don't have access to that kind of machinery. They're sort of in the 100,000 to 500 million range, and I just don't have that kind of money. So no, I haven't used those. All of my experience with 3D printing has been with filament printers, which have been Elegoo printers, and with the resin printer, which was the Mars printer. That's the only experience I've got of them. Well, that's not strictly true. The previous experience I had with filament printers was a make that I can't even remember the name of, but it was a pile of tut. So I had one of those bitter experiences with a pile of tut printer about 10 years ago. Hated them, so never went near them again, and got very snippy at people who suggested them. Oh, you must use a 3D printer. Oh, no, 3D printers, they're tut. You want the honesty of working with wood, steel, and metal and hammers. So I used to be more like that. But after I've got used to using these printers, and I've only really got used to using them because Elegoo asked me to use one. Yep. After I got used to using them and I realised how much they can speed up with your productivity and your creativity, then I very much more got into them. But the actual range of printers is quite small for me. And I don't mind that particularly because I'm not interested that much in what each individual printer will do. I'm only really interested in will a 3D printer from a particular manufacturer do what I want it to do? And that is print with as little interference from me as possible, be a reasonable price so that I can buy it and last a reasonable amount of time. It's all I really care about. Yeah. All the rest of it is just, I say that they're not a thing that I worship, so it's relatively meaningless to me. I just wanted to do those things. It turns out that the Elegoo printers will do those things. So I like the Elegoo printers because they do that, which, is pretty much what a printer needs to do as far as I'm concerned. All the other stuff, it's just not me, I'm not that interested in it. I'm just interested in developing engineering models, developing prototypes, and printing those things with as little interference from me as possible so that I can explore that and investigate the differences in things to look at creating something. So that's pretty much where I come from when it comes to 3D printing, Anyway,
what's next on the list? It's the software install.
You've got the list.
I've got the list. So I suppose at this point we both, we're going to have to go through the software and see what it's all about.
Yeah, no worries at all. Do you mind turning the computer?
Of course not.
Awesome. I'm looking for that red diskette that we had. That's there. Side button. Either that or we swap over.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Okay, let's swap over.
Have you got the red USB?
I have.
You do.
So earlier, when we were looking at that, we mentioned this, which is the red USB. The red USB has the software on it, and we're going to load it up on here. Now, there are two parts to this software. Does he want to find the answer? Is it plugged in?
That's what I was thinking. I was sat there pressing the button.
Somebody just crawled under the desk and turned the printers off.
Oh, that could have been someone that may be in this room right now.
Yeah, mentioning no names.
No
Yeah,
names.
blue light.
Okie dokie.
Oh,
There we go.
right. So, we have two bits of software when it comes to 3D printers. But then you have two bits of software when it comes to any printer. The first bit of software is the software in which you create it. So if you're going to print a script for your latest screenplay, you're going to have to write it. If you're going to have to write it, you're going to need a word processing software, something like Windows Word. Windows Word is where you actually write the thing. Then you send it to print, and it uses the printer driver to actually print it. And that is always the way you're going to be when you're doing something. So when you're printing a 3D print, you have one set of software which is just like Word, where you're going to write it. In these terms, of course, you're going to draw it. And then you have a bit of software that gets that drawing ready and prints it. So there's always two bits. Now, there's a bit of a changeover with these things because, well, you know, manufacturers are like. They like to paint something a different colour and scream how different it is. And so they are always playing around with these softwares and overlapping them on each other so that they'll have little bits from each other that makes it confusing. But you basically want a slicer, which is something that turns the drawing into what the printer can print. It's actually like a lot of flat drawings done one at a time and then stacked up on each other. That's all really a slicer is. It's taking slices, and as it cuts through and looks at that image, it will then, just like your ordinary printer, print that image. It just does it with a bit of plastic, and it builds that up layer after layer, and that's how you get your 3D image. So the job of a slicer is to take the drawing you've made and turn it into those flat images that it can then send to the printer, and so the printer can print them. So you're going to have two things. One of them is the drawing package itself. Now, this is the way you draw the 3D image, and there's lots of choices. And we're not proposing to go into that because that can be as long as it is short. I use Tinkercad. It's a very simple, very straightforward program. We've done videos on it that's freely available to anybody to use to do their kind of drawings on, and it creates the 3D image. Then we need to bung it into something that is a slicer. Now, I almost universally use Cura. I use Cura because it's a public domain software. It's amazingly easy to use, and I do no drawing on it whatsoever. I do my drawing in my drawing program. All I do with Cura is load it and slice it. Now, you can do other things. You can drill holes in it, you can make it hollow, you can put pieces together, all that sort of stuff. I don't do any of those. I do that in my drawing program because that's adapting my drawing. All I do with Cura is bung it in there, slice it, send that file to the printer. I don't do anything fancier than that. And I don't think you need to do anything fancier than that. That doesn't mean you can't. You can do some pretty great things. I just don't want to get into it that much. I just want it to slice and print. And so as long as it can do that, I'm very, very happy with that. And so that is all I know how to do. When it comes to 3D drawing, then that's a different question. But we're not going to go into that. We'll go into that another time.
Right, I'm going to get my USB so I can get the software that I need to go through ready. And
So-
I've also left my copper out in the kitchen.
It's a very common question to ask, which is better, a filament printer or a resin printer? And the answer you're always going to get from me really is it very much depends on what you want to do. Because each is more appropriate for the task you want it to do. And you have to remember that people like Tom Stanton will use both of them, again, depending on what they want to do. So when you look at his magnetic-driven bike, for instance, he uses a resin printer for the magnet holder and a filament printer for the disc holder. So it depends. Now, if you mean by better, which is a good one for a beginner to start, well, if you're going to be artistic with it in that sense, then I would say resin printer. But if you're going to be a bit more building models and engineering, a bit more like I do, then I would say a filament printer. So it's hard for me to say which is better when in a strict sense like that, because I really know nothing about what it is you want to do. So if you say which is better and you want to produce, I don't know, Star Wars cosplay, and I say, oh, get a filament printer. That could well be the wrong advice. So I just don't know which is better, because which is better very much depends on the circumstances that you want a printer for. Let's say, for example, you want to dip your toes in it, and you want it to be as easy as possible, and if you don't like it, you want it to be stupidly simple to sell, then probably a filament printer will do you just fine, probably, because they are really astoundingly cheap. I mean, you can get a filament printer for sort of the $90 to $100 range. You have to wait for a sale, but they will be $90 to $100. They're not going to be the best printer, but they're going to be a printer you can dip your toes in the water of, and you can put it on Craigslist and resell it. So what is the best is always a very difficult question to answer, not because it's essentially difficult, but because I just have no idea about what it is that you want to do with things, or why it is that you're looking at this.
Nice.
Oh, the competition ends in, I think it's 5 minutes.
No, it's over an hour.
It's over an hour, is it? So it's an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So the competition ends in just over an hour and 5 minutes. I think the link is still pinned.
Should be at the very top of the chat.
So the link is still pinned. So if you haven't got your entry in, then you want to be getting that entry in there for that competition. Remember, there are 33 prizes, so there's an awful lot. And some of those prizes, well, one of them is a Saturn Ultra 3, obviously. I forget what else there is actually, but it's in the link. It's, have a click on the link if your entry isn't in, then it's a good time to have a think about it. Okay, so back to this. Here is my assumption. This is either a blank disk or a disk with software, and what I'm expecting on here is the first part that I was talking about. I am not expecting to find Fusion 360, which is a CAD drawing program. I'm expecting to find a slicer program. And I'll see exactly what's there.
Yeah.
How handy is that? So that came with the machine, remember. So that one and this one, giveaway, which is a free blank disk, came with the machine. And that's got the software in it. Once you plug that in, you'll get user manual, software, model, and assembly tutorial video. Do you remember me saying that this actually was astonishingly easy, and they wanted to give as much possible help to you to make it as easy as possible for you to put this together and get up and running? And it is one of the things that I do like about these machines, is they are truly one of those things I think are easy to put together and easy to get up and running. Now you do have to have an idea what you want to do with them, because if you just buy one because you think it looks pretty, but you don't know what you're going to print with it, then you're probably never going to use it. You do know what you print with it, and you bought one 8 months ago and it's still in the box, that's just fear. Okay, you're just afraid of getting it out of there. I do that all the time. When I'm afraid of doing something, I'll procrastinate about it like crazy. I just sit there. I'll ignore it. I'll say I've got something else to do. I just want to do it. That's actually because I'm afraid of doing it, because I think there's more to it than there actually is. And when you get around to it, as an old joke, when you get around to it, and then you do it and you think, well, that was just stupidly easy. And of course, the best thing to do then is get amazingly smoke and act like you always knew. I know where you're going. I knew how to do that. But it really, if it's sitting in the box and you haven't got it out, it is because you're afraid of it. Okay. It is really just a matter of turning the thing on and exploring it So many of these things are about exploring. And life, remember, is the journey. The exploration is part of the fun of doing it. We put 3 screws in wrong at the beginning of this video. It's hilarious. And that's often the way it is. It's just all part of the fun of doing it. And you've got to remember that when you're doing these things. The journey is part of it.
Yeah.
You're not just getting a printer to 3D print. You're getting a printer to go on a journey. And you will do. It'll be a journey of exploration. And the first prints you do, well, they're going to be things like benching. Or they're going to be some doodad or knick-knack or thingamajig that's going to be useless in a week. But it's still part of that journey as you learn how to do it. And you have to learn how to do everything. I mean, you have to learn how not to pee yourself. Everything takes learning. And so there'll be a bit of time involved in there where that learning will go on. It's just the readiness to learn, okay? So if it's still sitting in the box, it's fear and not readiness to learn. Give yourself a shake. Give it a go. Set it up. Try it and see. Because essentially it is designed to be as easy as possible, particularly now. I don't think that was true 10 years ago.
No.
I think then it was designed to be as difficult as possible and hopefully wrap you in threads of plastic. But now it's designed to be easy. So we plug this in, thing comes bang, straight up, and we've got everything that we need right there. And of course, we have a thing called software, Andy. I wonder what's in there. How about that? Software. There's Elegoo software on it. There's a user guide and an installation file, and there's an DMG and an EXE file that I've got here. So you'd have to run that under Wine if you wanted it in Linux, but you'd then use the EXE file. And the EXE file is obviously Windows. I run Windows. Well, actually, I run every single Windows. I actually run right from Windows 3 right through to Windows 11, which I'm running on the editing machine that I've got. I use Macs and I use Linux machines. So I do about every operating system that ever was invented. And I even use FreeBSD when I'm linking things together and I want to multitask over 10 computers. So I've used every operating system there is. And mostly the DMG is your Mac, it's your disk image file, and your EXE is your Windows file. And you do with it the same thing. Double click it. If you double click it, it will start the installation procedure. I'm just wondering if I've got Cura on here. So Cura is a slicing software. It takes a finished STL file and slices it ready to print. Remember, slicing is just that changing 3D image in slices, hence the name, so we get 2D image that we can print and lay up and stack up in terms of those layers to allow that to be 3D printed. And really, it asked me if I wanted to allow it to change the computer. And yes, I do. And then it presents me some choice screens of which there is no choice. You just do next. Okay? It'll say next and cancel. And you just do next, next. Next, install, and it'll just tick away doing everything, because this is what Windows is like these days. Now, Linux used to be much more problematic. If you were installing a Linux package, you had to expand the package and find the right file routes to the directory tree to put your files in the right place so that that installation could understand itself. Now, of course, even Linux has a package manager that will do that for you, and so you don't need to worry about it. Windows, there's pretty much always had those package managers, and of course, Mac is just brilliant for that. Mac was designed for that reason. It will then ask you about the device driver. The device driver is the bit that you're going to need if you're going to plug it in directly in. So if you want to plug your computer directly into your Neptune, you need a device driver, just like you do with a printer driver, so that you can understand the commands and send that to it. We, of course, are not going to do that. We're going to sneak in absolutely everything. By sneaking it, I mean put it on a USB and take it to the printer and stick it in.
Nice. So that's pretty much installed.
It's finished that in drivers and it's completed, and we click next and we're going to start Cura. Now this is Elegoo's version of Cura. Cura is an open source program.
Yeah.
And what that means is that people can fiddle with it as much as they like without having to pay any royalties. and sometimes not even give credit, which is awesome. And it allows them to do things like put splash logos on here. We've got the Elegoo logo, and make little bits of changes to fit it to the particular machine. Now, because this red USB came with the Neptune 4, it'll have the Neptune 4 files on it, and so I won't need to do anything about that. And so it says, welcome to Elegoo Cura, get started, and there's the EULA, end users agreement. It's another one of those things you have no chance of actually change anything to.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make anything like that. Okay, so we get to this stage, add a printer, okay, and now we need to add a printer. And we're going to add a non-network printer because it's non-networked. And we click on Elegoo because we're using Elegoo. We've got a pull-down list of all the printer profiles. So all of the settings we would need to put into Cura are held in those printer profiles. We don't need to worry about those printer settings right now. You can play around with them. You can do stuff with it later if you want. But at this stage, when you're getting up and running, you don't want to be mucking around with that. You just want to click all of the standard stuff so the settings are there for you to use. And of course, we've got the Elegoo Neptune 4, and I'll click on Neptune 4. We've got the 4 Pro, and there's another one, the 4 Pro there. So we could click on both of them and install both of them, and that will install the correct drivers. And then the minute we do that, what we get is a little image of the actual space that's going to be printed, and we get this telling us is the Neptune 4.
I feel like I should bring it a little bit closer so we can see that.
How are we doing? No, there's nothing to see. But it just puts an image up there. I mean, there is nothing to see. And I have done videos on this installation procedure. Yeah. All I'm really doing is zipping through the installation procedure and talking about the software. If you do this, then it is that simple. Stick it in and click yes, 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 yes. And then click on Neptune 4 and you're going to be there. You can have a screen. And then that is Cura. Cura, remember, is that bit between the drawing package and the printing. Okay. Now you can do some drawing stuff with Cura. There are other slicer programs available where you can do even more stuff if you like. But on the whole, I keep it separate. I draw in a drawing package, I slice in a slicer. I don't try to draw in the slicer. Yeah. You can if you want. I just don't try to. I just use it as a slicer. And that's really why I'm going through this as a recommendation, because my recommendation would be the same thing, because it makes it that much simpler. Now, it does allow you to load an STL file in there from any source, as long as you have an STL file. And there are two great sources. One is Thingiverse, and one is Printables. Either of those are fine with an awful lot on.
Oh, so that setup was actually pretty easy.
Sorry, what's a blocking block?
Blocking block?
Can you tell me what the blocking blocks are? Or support blocker? Sorry, I just don't understand that. Can you expand on that and tell me what you mean? Would you give a go with extensions that creates a design from a description code? Yeah, I mean, sure, but not on this, because that's in the design bit of it where you're actually designing by code. I mean, a computer cannot draw. A computer can store code. If you store the right code to control the screen display, it looks like drawing, but it isn't. It's computer code. That's all you're doing. And yes, we can do that, but that's drawing stuff. Here, what we're talking about is getting the printer to print. And to print, then you need something to draw with, and then something to slice so it can print. And here we're talking about Cura as just being a slicer. Now, they do grey those edges so that, some slicers can do some drawing, and they grey the other way, so some drawing package can do some slicing. Of course, they grey those either way. But it's still those two tasks, eh? The thing about a simple slicer to get you up and running that's really easy to do is you get a STL file from absolutely anywhere and stick it in your slicer. You don't need to worry. You just get something you think is nice, stick it in your slicer, slice it and print it, bingo. Now, if you want something that you've drawn yourself, then you have to draw it yourself. And there are a number of ways of drawing something, just like there are a number of ways of programming something. One way to draw something is with where the user interface emulates a drawing for you. You look like you're doing a drawing because you see a drawing in front of you. The other is to go directly to the code and write the code, which will then do the drawing for you, or at least present you with something that looks like a drawing. Either's good, it doesn't really matter. But you separate the two tasks. So the drawing task is one task, which you can use a drawing program to do, or you can do direct code if you want. But it really is just a task that's over there called the drawing task. Now, in order to make that drawing task easier, I tend to use Tinkercad. Tinkercad because it's such an easy package to use, okay? There are lots of different packages to use to do that drawing, depending on what your particular bent and flavour and what you want to do with it is. The next very popular drawing program is probably Fusion 360, which is maybe the next popular CAD drawing program. But you are only performing the task of drawing. How you choose to do that task is the same way that it is with lots of things. There's lots of ways of doing that task. Here we're talking about putting those together so that if you have a desire to do 3D printing but have never 3D printed, then what you need is a drawing or somewhere to draw it. That's really straightforward and simple. A slicer to turn it into something the printer can print, and a printer to print it. And that's very similar to just using anything that you've used, like Word, for instance. In Word, you use it to write a letter, and then you translate that so that the printer can print it, and the printer prints it on a piece of paper. So it's the same process that you are using when you write a Word document than when you do a 3D print. The process is actually a process that you are surprisingly familiar with. It's just perhaps you may not have thought about it in those terms to see how close, in fact, you are. Because remember, a 3D printer, it does a series of 2D prints and just lays one on top of each other. So it's like doing a 2D print 680 times and stacking them up, and you'll get yourself a skull. So it's exactly the same process that you're going through, really. So that's all there is to installing the software. Now, as I say, you do have choices. I use Cura because it's free and it's easy and it comes in the box and you don't need to do anything else with it. The selection process is dead simple. You just click the button that says whatever Neptune model you've got and you're away. So that's all there is to setting the software up for any of these Elegoo printers. Remember, we've got the Neptune 3, the Neptune 3 Pro, the Neptune 3 Plus, the Neptune 3 Max, the Neptune 4, the Neptune 4 Pro, and they're all the same. You just click the different button when you're connecting up your printer.
Even then, I sometimes struggle to do that.
Yes. And that's because the button indicates the printer profiles in Cura. It loads the profiles for you, so you don't need to know what they are.
Yeah.
You can get into the back end, you can change those profiles, but you don't need to. And you can if you want to. Anyway, that's my bit finished.
Yeah.
Now, your turn.
It's my turn to go through the software, and again, it's not going to be much different to what Rob has just gone through, except it's going to be a slightly different slicer because it's for, well, a different printer. It's for a resin printer, not a filament printer. But again, it comes with a nice USB in the box, and inside of this USB, there's going to be the software that you want. Again, like I said, it's not going to be too different. We're basically just going to be opening it and clicking yes, 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 and install until it's completely done. So, yeah, as I thought, it is the software. There's actually two slicing softwares that come on here. One that I've done a few videos on prior, which is Chitubox or Chatubox, however you like to pronounce it. And there's a new slicing firmware on here, which I've never actually heard of, which is called Tango. And I can imagine that's pretty good. So, but I'm going to go with the one that I know personally, which is Chitubox. And I'm going to install it for Windows. But incidentally, it comes with a Linux version, a Mac OS version, and a Windows version. So depending on what system you're on, it's most likely going to have it. So click Windows, click Chitubox version 1.9, and just wait for the pop-up. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, they can't see what you're clicking and calling them.
No, well, For some reason, that's just popped up with an error as I'm trying to install it.
It's already installed.
Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's already installed. But like I was saying, the installation process isn't going to be too different to what Rob has just actually gone through. And there is videos up on the channel, actually, like Rob said, showing you how to go through this installation. So, the program that I did try to install is just...
Sorry, Matt.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, you are. Sorry, Matt.
That's fine. The program that I did try to install is Jitterbox, but I say unfortunately, we do have it already installed onto this computer, which means, well, there's not a whole bunch I can actually go through, but I suppose I could try and give Tango a go. But again, I don't know if we've got this installed. Let's try that. And also, it comes from Mac OS and Windows. It doesn't seem to be a Linux version for this Tango software, but we'll just give it a go anyway. And it's going to be, like I said, a whole bunch of pressing yes and install to this destination. And I don't know what more I can actually say that Rob hasn't actually gone through just yet. It's just going to be a slicing program that you put whatever you've designed with Tinkercad or Fusion 360 or whatever CAD program you're using. And what that's going to do is, again, just slice it into layers that the printer can actually understand. That way it prints in layers, giving you a finished print. Oh, I think this is actually letting me install it, so yeah.
Oh, you want to run that?
Yeah.
So somebody asked about the strength durability differences between plastic and resin machines. Now, man, you just get on with what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got 15 minutes to go. So we need to sort of speed that bit up a bit, I'm afraid. So it's like anything, okay? It's a bit difficult to explain, I suppose, but you think about what it is actually doing. Now, plastic is a very catch-all term because obviously a resin is a plastic. The filament that's being used, the properties of that material, it can depend on what material you're using. Now, I use a lot of PLA. ABS obviously has very different behavioral properties than PLA, but essentially it's a thermoplastic that you're able to reform by heat. And of course, we put it in little layers and little strips, and that act of putting these things in strips is going to give it grain. It's going to mean that in the long section, it's going to be much stronger and more durable than it is going to be in the joins between the grain, where the lines are being laid down with each other. Where they're being laid down with each other along the line is going to be a failure point because it's just not glued on as strongly. Where it's actually a straight line, of course, we're talking about filament there, where the bonds are very strong. And so it's going to be much stronger and more flexible and stretchable, deformable in that direction than it is going to be in that direction between the two lines. So the physical way that you're actually doing this is also going to have an effect. Now, obviously, the resin is being exposed with dots of light because it's a grid, really. What that does, it's going to create like a crystal format. It's going to be much more like cement, where it's going to be the interlocking of these little dots. And so something like a grain is not going to be as obvious in a resin print as it is in a filament print. And of course, we're using a UV curable photo resin, which is usually thermosetting, actually. And so the differences in strength of them and the way that they're going to break are going to be very different. And again, remember, there's an awful lot of different resins that you can actually get, as there are different filaments. So the particular strengths are going to depend very much on the kind of material that you're going to be printing with. And the peculiarities of the way that's being printed, that is, it's being laid in strips or it's being clustered together in crystals, is also going to give a different quality to how the thing will fracture. What kind of pressure you're going to have to put on it to make it fracture is going to be very dependent on the material you use. So hopefully that answers that question, although it probably, I always feel a bit guilty when I can't say a definitive answer, you know, green is good, black is bad. I always feel a bit guilty when I can't say that, but I try to answer as truthfully as I think. And there are so many variables in these things. There are no black and white answers to a lot of this stuff. Now, some of these materials, obviously, when you're talking about thermosetting resins, remember, acrylic glues are thermosetting resins, and so they're incredibly strong. And you can get some very tough materials that will do that. But equally, of course, there is a lot more strength in it being able to deform without breaking in certain circumstances. So there's no clear answers, and never is. And the basic answer is it just depends.
Very much so.
Oh, pretty much always that answer, I'm afraid. Which I know, it's unsatisfying.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Tango's installed. Jitty box is installed, and all I have to do is import whatever file I have, an STL file, bring it into that, click slice, stick it onto my USB, plug it in, click print, and that is just going to start printing, which I do think is actually kind of cool. But other than what Rob has already spoken about these slices, there's not much more I can actually add on to that, you know?
That's right. We've guessed on about these things for about 3 hours now.
Yeah. But it's
So I need a cuppa, you need a cuppa.
I need a cuppa, you need a cuppa, we all need cuppas.
So we've pretty much covered how to get it out of the box, how to set it up, quick look at the software, what the differences in the software is. And I think that's often one of the things that troubles people is, what kind of software and how difficult it is to learn. Well, at this very basics, piece of cake and no more difficult than sending a print from Word. Basically, it's the same idea. And then the benefits, if you like, or what these machines are all about when it comes particularly from Elegoo. Now, we were given these machines from Elegoo to talk about Elegoo machines, and that's very much what we've done. The information we've given has been only about Elegoo, and there are competing machines. Now, I like the Elegoo printers, and I like the Elegoo printers because they're a reasonable price. I mean, I actually think the price is crazy. I think it's crazy cheap for what they are. So they're a reasonable price. Our experience of them has been longevity. We've had no problem, and we've been running them non-stop for certainly 6 months and very heavy use for 8 months. And we will be reporting on them after a year. And in all of that time, we've had 3 problems. And those problems have been ours. We've created those problems. Okay, that is all I can really say about them. Is that my experience of Elegoo has been very good, and my appreciation of the Elegoo machine is quite high because it does what I want it to do. And what I want it to do is print a model easily with as little input from me as possible. And so when I come down in the morning, it's like Christmas and Santa's been and left me a 3D printed wind turbine, and I've had to do jack apart from go to sleep. And so that's why I report quite well on Elegoo machines, because that's my experience of them. When people ask me to get into the vagaries of various machines, well, that's just not for me, okay? Because I don't worship 3D printers as if they were something to bow down before. I use 3D printers in the same way I use a hammer. I use it as a tool.
Nice.
Now, there are hammers. What was that crazy hammer?
Oh, I can't remember, but it's something like $400.
There's this hammer.
$500.
It's a crazy price. It's somewhere between $350 and $400 for a hammer. And a kind of titanium handle, ergonomically shaped. It's a hammer, and I'm sure you can give a huge amount of explanation about why this hammer is so much better than anybody else's hammer. But you use it to hammer nails. It's a hammer. Who, in their right mind, would pay that? But people do. People do pay that because they're not buying a hammer. They're buying the bragging rights, okay? And that's what's important there to them. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? If somebody wants to buy a hammer and brag about it, well, I think it's a little cracked, but sure, why not? And it's the same thing with 3D printers. I just want a 3D printer. to do what I want a 3D printer to do. I don't need it to be covered in mother of pearl. I don't need it to take me down to the high street and have girls go, look at him and his 3D printer. I just needed to print things, and that's all I'm really interested in. And so that tends to be my standpoint on 3D printers. Almost exclusively print in PLA for no other reason than I make models so I can test them. I'm not making things to be there come the next revelation. It's just something I want to make to test. If it lasts for a week, I'm good. Yeah. If you are worried about it lasting for the next 15 million years, then you probably don't want to use PLA. There are other things available. But I only know PLA because I use it for what I want to use it for. Yeah. And this is the thing I say all of the time for people. You're going to use this stuff for what you want to use it for. And you need to do that so you can discover for yourself what it is. And that is the whole point. It's all about the journey. And you'll discover a lot of answers for yourself when you do. And then that's the important thing, is just to do something, and that'll get you there. These 3D printers, they're awesome, and they really will unlock your creativity. And that, I think, is pretty much all there is to it. The rest is give it a go and see how you get on. You'll soon find out which is your favourite filament. I think we're going to close there, actually, guys. Because
We've got 6 minutes, and somebody's asking again about adding graphene, so you might want to talk about it.
It's on the list.
yeah, basically. So the problem with adding graphene, especially to resin, is that any black material you add into a UV cut, a UV cure resin, is going to affect the cure times. We did actually try it in the Mars, and we didn't have much success. I plan on trying it in the Saturn, but I'm not expecting any more success out of it. It's going to be a long-term thing, because it's hard to cure black. Every printer knows this. And so they put curing agents in to speed up the cure time of blacks. Now, that's not such a problem for a printer, because he's printing at 8 microns on a piece of paper where he doesn't really want to do anything apart from be black. Because we want a graphene to do something else, and so there's an issue. So if I start adding a curing agent, which are mostly cobalt salts actually, that's going to make it quite difficult to dispose of. It's going to make it quite difficult to handle, and I'm not sure what kind of effect that's going to have on the properties of the final plastic. It is something I'm playing with. It's something I've been doing, but that one is not as simple as just chucking a bit of black in there and crossing your fingers and hoping it's going to work. It isn't. Other stuff needs to be done with it, and you know that's obviously well, it's more of a research project than anything. You know, it's not one of those give it a go and sees. It's one of those give it a bit of research and work out what's going to help make that do it. So we're on it. We're thinking about it. We do stuff every now and then with it, but it's not a simple answer. Nice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now just go back to the beginning, say what this is all about.
No. So we've spent 3 hours going through Elegoo's printer. We've run the competition. Yep. We will, I think, be pulling bits of pieces out of this. You might even redo some of the bits, actually, on the setting up of the printer, particularly the leveling of the printer. I thought that was pretty cool, actually. And that sort of stuff. The software was very difficult to see. We were towards the end of the time as well, and that made it a bit more of a gloss over. I mean, it really is easy, you know. It's just plug it in, double click it, and click next. But sometimes that's kind of interesting to see. So we might redo those bits as separate videos so that people can, you know, get hold of those bits a bit more clearly that we glossed over and we didn't do as well as perhaps we should have done them. So we're going to bring this to a close now, because I'm certainly.
Last question.
What's the last question? Oh.
It's from a while ago, actually, but I thought it was funny.
What video are you going to do for the number of birth years?
Your birth year. So when you get to 1963,
So it's not long to 1963. I think we're at 1950 now. I think I skipped 1949. Alex just held it back. And we did 1950. So I'm only 13 more videos on from my date of birth. So yeah, it's going to have to be something special, isn't it?
For sure.
Maybe we'll make our own fireworks. It's got to be something, isn't it? Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the time spent with us. We certainly enjoyed spending time with you.
So
Thank
it's
you
awesome.
very much for logging on and sharing it with us. And we'll see you again. Now, I've quite enjoyed the live event. They're obviously, when they go on quite long, 3 hours, it's quite draining for us, but I do quite enjoy them. And I'll have a think about another live event, really, which is not so closely tied to something like Elegoo. And we obviously had an awful lot of presentation that we had to do. And so there wasn't much in the way of, sitting there and chatting with each other and being as responsive to the comments as I would have liked to have done. So maybe we'll think about a live event where that's a bit more like that, and we spend a bit more time talking with each other that we weren't able to do in this because we had so much of the presentation we had to move through and do. But I've certainly enjoyed it. I hope you have too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being part of it. And hopefully we'll see you again.
See you later.
Bye-bye, guys.
Awesome.